to the meeting and let's get started. If you'll please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for that. Can you give me a roll call, Sadie, please?
Counselor Dunsmuir?
Here.
Counselor Gates?
Here.
Counselor Hughes?
Here.
Counselor Lidke?
Here.
Counselor Strobel?
Here.
Counselor Tenbush?
Here.
Mayor Drinkwine?
Here. Thank you very much, Sadie. All right, we are at the first presenter tonight. We have Estacada School District Ryan Carpenter. Is he standing by?
Yes, and I see Maggie too. I'm going to bring her in just in case.
Excellent, excellent.
I'm not sure if she'll be speaking, but.
Okay. Well, Ryan and Maggie, it's good to see you. We're glad you came before us and kind of fill us in on the school district. It's been a while, so thank you. And I'll hand it over to you.
All right, thank you, Mayor Drinkwine, and can I get a thumbs up if you guys can hear me loud and here? Thank you so much. First, I do want to take a moment to just say thank you for the invitation to speak this evening. I know the pandemic has impacted your functions and has created challenges similar to ours. And it's been a while since we've really had the opportunity to work together both in person and collaborate from a school district and city council perspective. And so today I'm just grateful for the opportunity really to speak with you tonight, and would love the opportunity to attend and work more closely with you all in the future. I would like to thank Counselor Lidke and Mayor Drinkwine. Together, we had a very productive conversation a couple of weeks ago to strengthen that. And again, I would like to thank Counselor Hughes, who wrote me a very nice email inviting me as well this evening, just to have more of a conversation about how we can together keep our community safe and support the education of our children. So it is a pleasure to be here this evening, and again want to say hello to City Manager Denise Carey. We've had a good relationship for the past several years as we've worked together, and I originally came tonight to talk about growth, because growth is a real issue that both the city and the school district are encountering and facing. Is that hot chocolate warm there, Counselor Gates? Does that look all right? Awesome. And so anyways, I'm excited to talk about that, but obviously some new things have come into our community really since the time to talk about growth. And so I really do want to stop a little bit to just make sure that I'm here to answer the city's questions about its school district and the mission and vision that we're trying to achieve through some very, very challenging times in our community and in our state. And so from a growth perspective, one of the things that I just want to take a couple of minutes to look just to share with you all is just a little bit of statistics. So currently, River Mill Elementary School is at 100% capacity. As we start next year, we do anticipate to be 2 classrooms short of the amount of students who are coming in. Clackamas River is at roughly 80% capacity. We have 2 vacant classrooms, which allows it to be available for roughly 50 more students to come to our Clackamas River Elementary School. The middle school is at about 75% capacity. We currently have 2 classrooms that are available. However, we can rearrange some different specialist services to provide for a little bit more classroom space. And our high school right now is at the least capacity, and we believe that we have 6 available classrooms, and we do our secondary at roughly 30 kids per classroom. So we can take roughly 180 more students at the high school. And the reason I want to share that with you is because capacity is an issue that we as a school district need to be proactive as the growth is going to continue to come. But secondly, it should be data, which I know you already know, but for maybe some of our constituents in our community who is listening, that the majority of the growth is really coming, they're young families with young age children. Of course, we welcome this, and the Estacada School District will always serve whoever comes through its doors. The reason why I wanted to talk about growth with you, though, is really 2 points. The first point is the Estacada School District understands that there is nothing we can do to prevent growth. The growth is going to come whether we like it or not. And so we would like to take a leadership role and partner with the city when it comes to being proactive about how best we can manage and support the growth as it comes into our community. We knew that growth, as the city did too, we know that growth and knew that growth was going to be an issue well before this pandemic started. And we started to ask our community for a capital construction bond in an effort to try to get in front of that growth a little bit. Unfortunately, with the pandemic, the timing, some communication, and several other factors, we were unsuccessful this time for that bond. But that doesn't prevent the growth problem from stopping. And so I am communicating this evening that the Estacada School District will be purchasing 2 portable buildings to be at River Mill Elementary School next year that will consist of roughly 4 classrooms. We believe that 2 of these 4 classrooms will be inhabited immediately based on this growth. And then that sets us up for a little bit more growth for us to be able to handle in the future. The other thing that's important is our hybrid learning model and our reopening of our schools has been so popular that the majority of our students have remained going to the Estacada School District, unlike other schools from other communities. For example, the North Clackamas School District's enrollment is down 900 kids as those kids went to charter schools, home schools, different educational opportunities. The Westland Wilsonville School District has lost over 1,300 kids to meet the needs of the families. The Estacada School District has remained stable. In fact, we've grown 100 kids during this time, which I think speaks a lot to our educators, our teachers who have been willing to come in and just give everything they've got to serve our families. It also tells us that our school options has reflected what the community's desire is to open its schools. And lastly, that growth continues to come. The last piece of evidence I want to talk about with growth with you, again, just so you have the information and the data that the school district is looking at as well, is even though our school district is up 100 kids, there probably were between 200 and 300 students who have unenrolled from our school district to be a part of the homeschool or to be a part of a charter school or do something different. As schools start to return back to quote normal unquote, we expect to bring those additional 200 or 300 kids who went somewhere else on top of that growth. And so we are starting to work swiftly and quickly to try to get ahead of that piece of it. One of the only, I guess my final thing, because then I'll move to safety, because I know I want to be pertinent with our time together today. But one of the other things that's important is we probably need to start taking a look at boundaries when it comes to where some of these students, what school they go to. It's only a short-term fix for a long-term problem of more people ultimately coming into our school district and us running into our capacity issues. But right now, the growth is occurring in our River Mill Elementary School boundary. And so one of the things that we'd like to do is maybe draw a circle around some of these new neighborhoods that haven't quite been developed yet and say this new neighborhood goes to Clackamas River Elementary School in an effort to try to balance that out in the meantime. We're trying to be cautious and cognizant of trying to move families or displace families from the home schools that they've already started. We know that families, especially at the elementary level, invest and engage and identify with the schools where their children are at. And so we're going to try our best in this time to respect that, all while moving forward with that. So that is the school's report on growth. If I had probably 30 to 40 more minutes, I could go a little bit deeper into that. I'm trying to give you the boilerplate version of some of the major challenges that we're working through when it comes to growth in that conversation. Recently, when it comes to safety, obviously a unfortunate event was encountered up into the Ranger Woods. And I do want to recognize the City Council for being first responders to supporting some of the community's concerns that were reported on social media and were reached out to you. We appreciate that, and that shows your investment into the safety of this community as well. I can tell you that the Estacada School District has worked very closely with the Clackamas County Sheriff's Department through this process. Obviously, because a crime occurred, the Clackamas County Sheriff's Department takes the lead in investigating crimes, and we provide the Sheriff's Department with any and all evidence that the school has obtained during this process. So ultimately, the Clackamas County Sheriff's Department leads its criminal part, but the Estacada School District obviously follows its rules, its policies, and its protocols in the student's handbook. And so we believe at this point that we, the school district, have finalized our execution of its policies and protocols. I believe we're still waiting to some extent for the sheriff's response and responsibilities. And I know that there are potentially more things coming in that realm. At this point, the school district is ready to move forward with that specific incident. We feel like that is closed from the school district's perspective. Now, one thing that is important is probably, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago now, led by Marianne Bugney and the Ford Foundation, if I'm saying that right, and maybe some people were a part of that Ford Foundation. Councillor Tenbush was a part of that as well. A group of people came in and really cleaned that out, improved its pathways, and tried to keep that there. In the last 5 or 6 years, obviously that vegetation has grown a little bit, and we may need to take a look at how we can continue to keep those woods transparent, so that the community can see inside of that and make sure that it's a safe place for all of our kids. Because again, as the growth continues, there's going to be more foot traffic that comes through that specific spot. I do want to give credit to City Manager Denise Carey. We worked probably a year ago, and we put some lighting in between the Cemetery Road and the upper parking lot there. And so that sidewalk and that lighted pathway is the recommended pathway for our students and our community as they go through there. But that being said, we know that the Ranger Woods still get utilized. It's a beautiful place to walk through, and it's a heavy traffic area for our students to go through. And so I would love to partner with the city in finding ways that we might be able to make that well-used public space more safe for our community to traverse through. But when it comes to that specific incident, we feel like things are under control. The facts have been reported to families and the Sheriff's Department, and we're ready to move forward past that one. So that being said, I'd like to yield the rest of my time to allow the city to ask any question it would like of its school district, and I'm here to serve you this evening.
Okay, great. We appreciate that, Ryan. And I'll start this off. I had a question for you before we go any further. I wanted to know how the influx of kids coming back with COVID being so prominent right now. Are you seeing any, flashpoints from that? Are you dealing with anything that might be, hard to take with the COVID incident?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. Right now, the Estacada School District, and I know the Estacada community as well, is seeing a pretty significant surge in COVID cases, both in adults and in children. In our very transparent COVID dashboard on our school website, you can real-time see students right now who have currently tested positive, as well as students who we have proactively placed on quarantine status to try to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. And currently on that dashboard, less than 1% of our students, or roughly 11 students currently, have contracted a positive to the COVID-19. Based on our health and safety protocols that we follow from the Oregon Health Authority and Clackamas County Public Health, as well as our Oregon Department of Education guidelines, we're required to basically draw a circle around that positive kid by 6 feet. We have been overly cautious, and we've been kind of turning off switches here and there for whole classrooms. So if a student in someone's 5th grade class, tested positive, right now we're putting that whole 5th grade class into quarantine. And that's been received both positively and negatively from our community. We're trying hard to make sure that the Estacada School District is not a spreader school. We don't want to be that way. However, we understand that by being cautious and sending several kids home that may or may not be directly impacted by the virus, it inconveniences our families as they now have to if they have to change their plans for 14 days, it may affect their youth sports activities and some of those things as well. And so we have been met with some resistance from our community, but at the end of the day, we're trying our very best to be safe, manage the virus. And we're also seeing that the peak happened really last week. We are going to be bringing back, I think, roughly 25 or 30 students before this week is over who have already quarantined for 14 days. And so we're starting to see this trend start to go back down, but we're ready for new spikes and new things as they come.
All right, thank you. Other questions for Ryan? Do we have anybody? Joel, go ahead.
Hey, Ryan. Thanks for taking the time to come out tonight. I have a few questions, if you don't mind.
Yep, go ahead.
First one is, along with the Ranger Woods, has the school considered like a remote camera option or some sort of trail camera option in case there's ever an incident that they might be able to have some sort of video?
You know, at this point we haven't, but that conversation has actually come up in the last 3 or 4 weeks about how we can better surveil what's going on out there. The issue right now is getting power out to those specific spots. And so that would be something we'd want to do, you know, again, because a lot of what we pay for when it comes to safety and security comes out of the general fund. And we try our best to keep the general funds inside the classroom and supporting the teaching and learning. It's a commitment that we're going to need to make financially to support the safety out there. But it's a conversation that's occurring inside our district, and we're looking for ways of how we can surveil that, because really not only the Ranger Woods, but that whole back athletic complex right now is an unsurveilled spot. And we've had some arson occur back there with some porta potties and just some other vandalism back there as well. And so it's a bigger problem than just that. So I appreciate that question.
Excellent. Thank you. So you said it's been a while since we've had some cleanup in the woods. Did the Indian farm just do some cleanup in those woods recently, like the last few weeks?
You know, to be honest, I don't know the answer to that. That doesn't mean that they didn't. That's a possibility that it could have happened. And I haven't walked through there in the last couple of weeks personally, but it is possible. Maggie, do you know the answer to that?
I have not heard of anything from the district level that has been done. I do know maintenance has been pretty much all over these grounds, especially since that incident, but I don't know what extent of clearing has occurred. So I will look into that as well.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Two more. So in the short term, until you guys can figure out like a better surveillance out there, do you guys have a plan to maybe offer in some monitoring, like, you know, having after school, having like a teacher or maybe the school resource officer heading out that way or something?
Yeah. At this point, we haven't been able to staff that, and I don't know if that's come up. It would be the high school who would ultimately serve and support that role. Right now, our high school is spread really all over the place, up to and including those outside areas in the back, maybe not specifically in the Ranger Woods, but right now our focus too is also on social distancing, kids remaining with their masks on. There's a major pinch point right now with trying to get students safely on the bus, safely in cars, and safely on their way home from a virus perspective as well. And so right now our support is maximized in that spot. But one thing I would be open to is maybe some potential family volunteers or parents who might be able to help with that as well. We're constantly asking for support in those areas. However, with COVID, our limitations in volunteers being inside our schools is prohibited right now. But some of those types of things might be places where our community can help support that.
Excellent. You kind of beat me to the branch off question to that was about volunteers. So if there's some volunteer families, because we've heard about some, do they need to check in with the school to be there, or can they just, you know, hang out in the woods and that's okay? Or what's the best way that you would like them to do that?
Either way works. We would prefer to work in coordination with you. And so if you could either contact the high school and or the district office, we can find ways to coordinate that. But that being said, it is a public space. And if a community member of reputable source would like to just enjoy their walk in the Ranger Woods during that time, we support any support that's available to us, as long as school district protocols and policies are being followed.
Okay, last question, promise. Considering that there's a capacity issue in some of the schools, have you guys taken into consideration like maybe continuing the hybrid model to some students that are okay with that and showing good results? Maybe even like doing like a split hybrid or something to try to expand that capacity?
Yeah, excellent question. And currently right now, River Mill Elementary School is to some extent in hybrid due to its capacity. So we cannot, if every child wanted to come back to River Mill High School or River Mill School Elementary School right now, we would be unable to fit them due to the 3-foot social distancing rules. And so there's a waiting list of families who do want to come back that we currently cannot take right now because we don't have the space with the protocols that we're required to follow. And that's including, by the way, 20% of that population that has elected to be 100% online the entire year. So of the 80% who wants to return, not everybody can right now.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Charity.
Thanks for being out tonight, Ryan. Really appreciate it and appreciate all the information. First, I really want to express my condolences for the loss of a teacher at the middle school, Samantha Fox. My son had her, and we just really are, our heart goes out to the families and all of the staff and everything that's worked with her. And I just want to offer my condolences. So with that unfortunate incident, my question then, so since we are now looking at capacity issues with the grade school, as the school board, and I wager you are, but I just kind of want to see where you guys are heading, is the school board looking at then future capacities? Because eventually these grade school kids will grow and then they'll move to the middle school and then the high school. Yeah. So are there going to be potential issues with capacity once the big influx of elementary students move up in grades? Has that been looked at?
It's being talked about. Those are like the conversations that we're in the process of starting right now. Starting first with the immediate needs of that. But as you're predicting correctly, Councillor Hughes, that as this community grows and pushes towards higher levels of our K-12 model, the middle school is absolutely a capacity concern. I would say that our high school is not a capacity concern. It was built during the height of the logging times in Estacada. And so we believe in theory that that building can hold roughly 1,000 students. Right now, we're about 500 or 600. 550 is where we're at currently, but we expect that to start creeping towards 600 in the next 2 or 3 years. But there's plenty of space when it comes to our high school. Where capacity becomes an issue at the middle school currently for us is that about 5 years ago, our school district made the determination to move 6th grade to the middle school. 6th grade used to be an elementary school age. And so by moving an additional grade level into that middle school is when capacity started to get tight. Now, the issue that you're predicting correctly is now we're at K-5, a pre-K-5 inside our elementary schools, and we're already at our maximum levels. And that's going to push more 6th graders, more 7th graders, and more 8th graders to the middle school. And so the conversation is starting now. When we talk about the needs of what that means, which would be an additional elementary school, or a new middle school, or just a new building. Maybe that's a better way to say it. A new educational building. That conversation does not get met very well with our community at the moment. And so the school district has a lot of conversations and a lot of listening to do to see what the community wants us to do with this growth, because it's coming. We're going to need the community to invest in its school district in order to handle it in a first-class way, the way we would want our kids to be invested in right now. And that's a conversation that we're just getting started in having, because we want to make sure that we're aiming for the correct bullseye with this.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Katie.
Hi, Ryan.
Hello.
So I'm actually going to take us in a completely different direction that we haven't touched today.
Okay.
You have about 2 years ago, you provided me with some statistics about students in our district that are experiencing homelessness or at risk of experiencing homelessness.
Yeah.
And I realize that we've been in the middle of an eviction moratorium, but I've still been hearing stories of students or families experiencing homelessness for different reasons. And not all of it has to do with non-payment of rent. Although we know that July 1st, there's going to be a slew of families at risk of homelessness because the eviction will be ending in July. I guess I wanted to just hear what your perspective is from the school district side. If you see this as a problem that is going to be getting worse or has been getting worse progressively over the last 2 years, or if you think that we're probably the same today as we were 2 years ago, where we've got about 20 or so, students in our district experiencing homelessness, and just kind of wanted to hear what your perspective was from that side of that.
Yeah, thank you for asking that question and really being focused on how we can serve some of our historically underserved children in that process. Your numbers are still currently accurate. We're around 20 students who are considered to qualify for homeless assistance, which is money that we get from the federal government to support those specific students. What is interesting is the homelessness is not just what you think of in terms of families who have been evicted, which is still occurring, by the way, and we still have some of those families, but also students who have been displaced or have lost their home due to wildfire, who also qualify for those services. And we still have several students who qualify for homelessness because they have lost their residence through that process and are living in temporary living. We are daily picking up students in Troutdale and in Gresham who, because the law says that if you resided in the Estacada School District prior to becoming homeless, so say you're at a halfway house or a shelter, or you're living on a couch at your grandma's house in Troutdale, we're still required to transport you to your home district. And so we have been driving out to Troutdale and Gresham to serve and support these kids as well. So I would assume, Councillor Dunsmuir, that the more our community grows, as we start to recover economically from this and those supports from the federal government start to go back to the way they used to be, I do expect for us to see an increase in homeless students. However, I do believe that our school district is pretty well equipped at the moment to serve and support those kids, both academically and through social emotional supports. We now have DHS who works inside our buildings. We have social services who work inside our buildings, and we've got a lot of case managers and other supports that connect families to resources in our community. And so over the last 3 or 4 years, really since we've spoken, we've built a pretty strong army to support those students, and we do expect it to increase.
All right. Any other questions for Ryan and Maggie? Jerry.
Not really questions. Hi, Ryan. Hi, Maggie. I just want to commend the school district for the work with the performing arts, the theater group being able to, put on productions and, watch the productions on, via social media and stuff. They do an amazing job, and it's really cool that is still out there for those kids. So thank you guys for all your hard work.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Jerry.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Ryan and Maggie, we appreciate you sharing your evening with us. I know you're tired. You probably had a long day, but we appreciate the updates, and you're doing a great job, and we'd love to see it continue. So we will be there for you where you need us. And it was nice having you tonight. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you all.
Bye-bye. Okay, Sadie, next on the list, we have the 2020 Wildfire Resource Clackamas County Long-Term Recovery Group. Kimberly Abels is presenting, is that right?
Yep, she's on now.
All right, Kimberly, are you there?
I am. I
All
don't
right,
see
great.
my. Oh man, I got some blinder issues. There we go. Hi, it's good to see you all again.
Yeah, how have you been?
I've been well, hanging in there like the rest of us, I think.
Good, good.
I wanted to come today to give you a quick presentation related to the long-term recovery group that has been formed that's providing wildfire recovery assistance to several throughout Clackamas County, but we also have several families that we're assisting in Estacada. Oh, good, I can share my screen. Share. There we go. So we're called Clackamas County Long-Term Recovery Group, which can be slightly confusing, but it's not associated with the county. It's not a government organization in any way, shape, or form. It's just our group is focused on recovery on those folks who are recovering in Clackamas County. So we are a nonprofit organization that's comprised of a variety of volunteer community members and other nonprofits. We all gather together and meet. We used to be meeting weekly. Now we meet twice a month. And we have several different folks, as you can see, represented at the table. So we have the Home Builders Association, Clackamas Emergency Services Foundation. We have some FEMA representatives, the United Way, Estacada's CERT, the food bank. We do have a rep from Clackamas County who helps us like push through things like permits and get around kind of the more difficult items that we tend to come together with. But the main idea is to be a clearinghouse for the folks who need wildfire assistance in the long term. So this group is planning to be around for 2 to 4 years as folks rebuild and we start to move through into the recovery process, or should we have another wildfire incident, this group will also be represented. We also work with the Malala Area Chamber of Commerce, and we have a couple of representatives from like Malino and some of the other smaller cities, but that are within Clackamas County. And these long-term recovery groups are pretty standard after any kind of large-scale emergency or disaster happens. So they're setting them up in Lincoln County, Lane County, Marion County. And so we're all kind of working together and sharing what it's like to work through this with all of the Oregon perspectives. So we do have a pretty strong equity statement, and we're happy to be able to say that our disaster case managers are bilingual. So all of our Spanish speaking folks who need assistance, we have someone who can help with that. And we're just a spot to kind of gather resources and make these connections and to make sure that if you need something, even as you need a new refrigerator, that's the one thing that your insurance didn't cover. You can come to us and we can find you the refrigerator, or we can help you put in your septic and build your house from the ground up. So it's a whole wide range of different services. And we have a lot of, what is the word I'm looking for? The larger companies who are partnering with us and providing and letting us, they say, hey, what do you need? We bring them an unmet need from the community and they provide it. We have different tradespeople and skill sets that are like, hey, I'm available. What do you need? Do you need electrical work? Do you need plumbing work? What do you need? How can I help? How can I fill these gaps? So that's kind of, we're just serving as that kind of clearinghouse. I work mainly on the communications aspect of things, given my background, but we have folks who do a whole variety of things. And this is just a smattering of the different types of things we help with. So we've got help with the FEMA applications, any other documents or applications you need, small businesses as well. If we have folks in our community who are still needing some small business assistance, documents, working through the cleanup process, working with Cascade Relief to get all the hazards and debris out of your area, and also emotional and spiritual guidance. We have quite a good following and a connection with the Estacada ministry group. And so they're helping us kind of reach out to the communities and providing any kind of assistance that we can. So I just wanted to, my main point for coming to you today was just to inform that you guys know we're here. We have a website, we're on Facebook, we're up and running. We have a fiscal sponsor that's a 501c3. So any donations are tax deductible. We're actively working on several cases, and I didn't want it to be something that may catch you off guard if you hear about it from a community member. You're like, hey, we didn't know these folks were operating in our area, or what kind of our connection is. So just kind of here to say hi, let you know we're here. If you have any questions, please let me know. We have claccares.org as our Facebook or as our website. There's a lot more information there.
You can figure out how to get involved, or if you need to refer someone. I'm not going to check anybody's ID. There's no government connection in any way, shape, or form. We just want to help folks and kind of connect those resources and meet those unmet needs. So just want to let you know we're here and we're happy to help, and I'm happy to answer any questions or let you move on with your meeting.
Okay, let me get back to the screen here and then I can kind of look and see who's got their hand up. Just want to, there we go. Anybody want to, oh, Paul, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Kimberly. Thanks so much. Great information. A couple, maybe a month or so ago, I heard that there was still some issues with cleanup in the Clackamas area. How's any updates on that? Do you know? Would you be a source?
Yeah, so it's moving through slowly for a variety of reasons, but we're finally starting to see some progress. One, we were waiting on a lot on the county to figure out how they wanted us to handle the debris and where it all needed to go. And then there was also a bunch of confusion around this right of entry form that people had to fill out, where you gave the government permission to come on your land and move stuff out. And so it was a lot of miscommunication around that, and that you can revoke that at any time. It's not a set amount of time. If you want them to stop in the middle of what they're doing, you have complete power to pull it back. So I think once we've been able to talk about that a little bit more, and for folks to get that understanding, we're seeing the debris move through. The other problem is with wildfire ash, it's notoriously hazardous, especially in homes, because as things burn, everything kind of comes down. So you've got your household paint, your household cleaners, and all of that stuff can't just be disposed of super easily. So as we're starting to see more boots on the ground and we're starting to get a better understanding of what the barriers are for folks, we're starting to see it move a little bit better.
If someone has any concerns, then would your group be a good one to reach out to?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions for Kimberly? No? Kimberly, we thank you for coming tonight and informing us. This was great to have you out there, soldiering this effort. We appreciate you and everything that you do. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
You too. Okay, we are at the first citizen and community group comment. Sadie, do we have anybody in the slot?
Yes, I see somebody just raised their hand. It looks like Ken Johnson. I'll bring him in.
All right, great. Ken, are you there?
How about that?
Perfect.
Okay. Good evening, city councilors and staff. Thank you for this opportunity to speak again tonight. Once again, I find myself compelled to comment on the statements made by a city councilor, statements that are misleading, misinformed, and defamatory. During the April 26th council meeting, I challenged statements made at the April 12th meeting made by Councilor Dunsmuir regarding her vote for appointments to the DEC. Councilor Dunsmuir then defended her disparaging remarks, saying she attended a city council meeting in which Bennett Johnson, quote, was asking us to revoke a legally issued permit to a club for Austin Healey's that were going to be parking up and down Broadway, unquote. So first off, this wasn't legal or illegal. There's no law surrounding these decisions. I don't think there's even any city code in this regard. In that meeting, when staff was asked how granting this permit was decided, they responded, he filled out the application. So now I'm wondering, could I fill out the application and shut down 2nd Avenue on a beautiful Saturday in June and cut off access to Les Schwab and Old Mill and the Hitchin Post? Could I submit an application and shut down Arcacia Road and cut off access to the Cavsadero? Maybe I'd get a permit on a Sunday in July and shut down Main Street and prevent vehicles from entering True Value's parking lot. Can I shut down Harvest Market or High School Pharmacy if I fill out the application? We lost several $1,000s of business the day the Austin Healey's were parked on Broadway. My employees were cheated out of over $100 in tips each, and for what? My company pays $15,000 a year in property taxes and has for 20 years now, yet we're expected to cheerfully submit to having the very infrastructure we've been supporting to be randomly taken away from us. And for what? This discussion was about appointments to the DEC. This Austin Healy event had nothing to do with the DEC. This was just some random guy, not even an Estacada resident, who wanted
Ken,
to
I'm just gonna have to kind of hurry you along here. We're at the 1 minute marker. If you could just.
Yep, and I've got 5.
Okay.
This was some
You
random
got 3
guy,
minutes.
not even an Estacada resident, who wanted to shut down Broadway Street during one of the busiest days of one of the busiest weeks of the busiest month of the year for my company. And why? Because him and his buddies wanted a place to stop in the middle of a road trip for a photo op. And third, Councillor Dunsmuir stated that the Downtown Estacada Commission is the group tasked with event planning that occurs downtown. I think it's high time some councillors familiarize themselves with the city code outlining the responsibilities of this committee. The task assigned to this committee by City Council is economic development. Events are not the main focus or even close to it. I will now quote from The Main Street Approach, a guide to comprehensive commercial district transformation.
Ken, I'm gonna have to stop you there, buddy. The time is up.
Don't I get 5 minutes?
It's a 3 minute, not a 5 minute. But we understand what you're saying. I think everybody kind of gets the gist of it. What we should be looking out for as far as economic development. I think that's something we need to talk about and we'll talk about. And we appreciate you bringing that forward. Are you there? Okay.
Okay, I don't see anybody else with their hand raised in the audience. If there is anybody in the audience that wishes to speak,
Okay.
if you can use the raise hand function, but I don't see anybody. Nope.
Okay. All right. Moving right along, we are at the consent agenda. I think all of you have had a chance to look it over. We have one change in a liquor license for the Real Deal Grocery. I think you've all had a chance to read that. And of course, the minutes that we're approving. So can I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
I have a first and second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much for that. Okay. Moving right along, we're at department and committee reports. I have committee, commissions, and liaisons. So any of you that have anything from your groups that you'd like to report on, now's the time. Who wants to go first? Jerry, go ahead.
Nothing really big to report, just, well, I guess it is really big. The council or the commission chair, Jean Hebert Larson for Arts Commission is stepping down. So they'll be going through a process to possibly get a couple people appointed to the Arts Commission, a few people to apply. And then after that process, they will appoint a new chair, but Jean's going to be on until after summer celebration, I believe. And then she's stepping down from the Arts Commission. So, which is sad because she's really, really good with the commission. So.
Okay, thank you for that, Jerry. Anybody else wishing to comment? No? Okay, great.
No,
we
actually,
will-
sorry, Mayor, I do
Oh,
have something,
sorry.
sorry.
Go
So
ahead.
we had a DEC meeting. I wish I could have said this before Ken went, but I want to give some huge props to Bennett Johnson. She had a great presentation during that meeting. It was a very productive meeting. It's a new people are on that board now, and they've got some new leadership. But they were they're looking at making some new goals, and they have some great ideas moving forward. So I'm looking forward to kind of hearing how they develop that as we go, but very well done. So good job, Bennett.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Justin. Anybody else wish to speak before we move on? No? Okay. Next, we have the city manager's report.
I just have a couple things. We're getting ready to appoint the Charter Review Committee, and I just, other than the mayor's terms, is there anything else that the council would like to direct them to look at specifically instead of just the charter in general?
Katie?
Is the attendance rule that we have in there about like missing 60 days, is that a charter or was that found somewhere else?
The rule, it's in the charter, the 60-day.
If you're looking for like just throwing out, looking into other charters that might need some improvement, I would like it if they could at least discuss that one.
Yeah, and maybe the wording is a little awkward too, so maybe coming up with some new wording on that, so.
Sure.
Got that?
Joel?
What's our deadline to get you some feedback on that? I wasn't prepared to provide you that, so I would like to look it over and see if there's anything I can recommend.
Yeah, if you want to look it over and send me anything, we're gonna, Sadie's getting ready to advertise for the committee, so it'll be a couple. Will they appoint Sadie to the committee?
They'll appoint at the first meeting in June.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess some time then.
But we'd like to get some kind of statement ready to give them, to applicants, what they would be tasked with doing.
Yeah,
Okay.
So maybe in the next couple weeks.
yeah.
Okay. Oh, Paul?
What about our, I guess, subdivision checklist or new neighborhood checklist? We put in quite a few subdivisions. The city's been growing quite a bit. Are those the questions that we ask? Are they still applicable or not? Should some things be changed? Would that be something they could look at?
Those aren't in the charter. Those are in our zoning, planning and zoning ordinance. So I think that we have, I think the staff has talked about looking at that and going through that. And I know Taylor is constantly now looking at, things we run into. So I'll look at that and bring you a report back, Paul, about looking at some of those possibilities.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wish to comment on that particular part? No? Okay, go ahead, Denise.
Oh, yeah, let me get that written down here. And let me see, what was the other thing that I had? Now it's gone. Gosh, I can't think of what else I wanted to let you guys know. So I will, if I think about it, I'll chime in at the end. Katie, did you have something on the charter?
No, I was hoping for an update on the retail cannabis town hall, if there was another date that we're looking at, or yeah. Just
so we haven't chosen a date yet. We're looking at sometime in June. We're hoping that we get through May and everything starts leaning the other way. So I am trying to get all of the results that we've had from all the different surveys into one spreadsheet to send out to the council. And then also some other, I have some other information that I want to get out to the council too. So I'm trying to get that put together in the next week or so. But we haven't set a date. And I think we're going to send out a doodle poll to the council to kind of have a feel of, because it doesn't have to necessarily be a Monday night. We were kind of aiming for Monday nights because those seem to be good, but sometimes Monday nights aren't good for people because they forget about it. It's at the start of the week and they're tired. So by the next meeting, we should have a few dates for you guys to see if those will work.
Great.
Thank you, Denise.
Thank you. Joel?
I don't know if it's the right time to bring this up, but I noticed we have a budget meeting tomorrow, right after a packet like this. Can we reschedule that? Give us a week to actually look through it.
No, but that had to be, it had to be advertised. There's certain, we go by state law on that, and it's already been advertised, and we can't reset it.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else? All right, do you have anything else, Denise?
No,
or-
I'm good.
All right, great. Moving right along, we are now at the fun part of this tonight, and I have 3 of these, 2 rather quick. One's going to take some time. The first one is a public hearing. I will now close the city council meeting and open in the public hearing on subdivision 2021-03-S. Brett Gresham and Greentown Builders LLC. And do any members of the council wish to abstain or declare ex parte contact before we continue? No? Okay. So the council will now hear the staff report on this proposal. I'm figuring Taylor, that's why you're here. Are you going to give us some update on this?
That is one of the reasons why I'm here, yes.
All right.
Okay, so as usual, I'm going to share my screen. Bear with me just a moment. Bunch of stuff open here. Okay, and we want the PowerPoint. There we go. All right. I hope you all can see that and can hear me okay. So this is 2021-03-S. I'm going to try to run through this as efficiently as possible in the interest of time without glossing over any important details. It is a large subdivision application, so there's a lot to go through. So if there's anything that it feels like I've rushed through, if it's okay with the meeting rules, I'm fine with being interrupted, or there of course will be the opportunity for questions at the end. This is a subdivision application for Eagle Ridge at Curran Creek Phase 2. This is the second of 2 public hearings on the application. I will be presenting tonight the Planning Commission's recommendation to the City Council. The City Council is tasked with evaluating this proposal against the approval criteria that's provided in the development code that Paul was just talking about. And then the council's decision tonight is final unless appealed to LUBA. There we go. So the approval criteria that apply to the proposal are found in these 5 code chapters. So that's the 2 zones that are involved, R1 and NCR. The subdivision requirements, actually the last 3 on this page are all in the division that's related to land division. So I'm just going to quickly get us oriented with how the report is organized according to the approval criteria that need to be applied by the decision-making body. And then we'll go into the details of the proposal, and then we're going to revisit these approval criteria at the end once you are familiar with the proposal. So beginning on page 3 of the staff report, or the Planning Commission's report now, are the subdivision design and improvement standards. So those come first. Next, on page 16 are the tentative plan requirements, and that's where you find the 9 impact statements that correspond with our comprehensive plan goals. On page 20, you'll find the newer chapter on pedestrian and connectivity requirements. And then last, on page 22, you'll find, or starting on page 22, you'll find the 2 residential zone standards. So that's how the report is organized, just in case you are wanting to reference that while we're going through. And like I said, we'll come back to these at the end. The applicant and the property. So the applicant is Brett Grantham with Greenworks Contractors, and his representative from PBS Engineering is Anne Marie Skinner. The 2 properties involved are all of tax lot 100 and then just the easternmost portion of tax lot 600. And you can see here they are separated by the yellow dots. So the subject property does abut phase 1 of Eagle Ridge to the west, which I'm kind of circling, which you approved very recently. And on all other sides, rural residential acreage. And you can also see here the new sewer line that was extended from River Mill Road bisects the property there. That's also where, as you already know, Southeast Curran Creek Road will also extend through the site. The site that we're looking at is about 30 acres. It is a combination of 2 different types of residential zoning, the newer NCR, North City Residential Zone, and the existing, our good old R1 low density residential on the northeast side of the site. The site does currently contain a single-family dwelling and some outbuildings. All of those will be removed for the development. Curran Creek also bisects the site from the southeast corner to the northwest corner. And so, yes, there are indeed wetlands present. The applicant did provide the wetlands delineation report, and that has already been approved by the Department of State Lands too. Service considerations. This is just a summary. We'll look at their plans in a moment, but water can be extended from phase 1 of Eagle Ridge. Sewer also extended from phase 1. They are proposing 2 stormwater tracks. Stormwater runoff will be managed as prescribed by the code. And then police, fire, and school districts are already serving that area. So the basics of their proposal, they are proposing 155 total new lots. 128 of those are in the North City residential zone. 27 are in the R1 low density residential zone. So you can see here, there's Curran Creek. All of the ones that are above and to the right of the creek are in the R1 zone. So that's just 27 lots. And then the 128 are in the NCR zone, which, as you know, was developed with the intention of allowing smaller lot sizes. So you're getting a denser type of development on that side of the creek. As I mentioned, there are 2 stormwater tracks. There are also 2 open space tracks being proposed. Those are along the creek here. And we'll look at those more closely also. So one of them is on the north side of Curran Creek Road, and one of them is on the south side of Curran Creek Road. And then there's also one landscaped common area tract on the east side of the creek down here at the southern corner of the site. So those are the basics just to get you started. We'll look first at utilities. I just have a couple of slides here showing their submitted preliminary utility plans. This is the northern part of the development, so north of Southeast Curran Creek Road. And as required, they do indeed show how all of the lots will be provided with sewer and water that will be extended from Curran Creek Road, which that will be developed with phase 1 of Eagle Ridge. And then, as you can see in the upper left and center here, we have the 2 stormwater facility tracks. And then let's see, moving on to the southern portion, also showing how each lot will be served with sewer and water. And as I mentioned, their stormwater downstream analysis will be required, and that will ensure that stormwater runoff will either be detained in those stormwater facilities on site, or will meet the city's requirements and standards for runoff. So let's move along to streets. So the site access will take place from both existing and new streets. The major collector here is Curran Creek Road. As I mentioned, that's the extension of River Mill that you all reviewed quite recently. So that will be extended through the site to the eastern boundary. New internal streets will be installed as local streets, sidewalks on both sides, built to the same standards as all of the new local streets included in phase 1. The frontage along Southeast Wren Road here down at the south part of the site will also be improved with half-street improvements, meeting the city standards for a local street as well. That will match up to what was required at this corner here from phase 1. None of the individual lots will take access directly on Kern Creek Road because it is a major collector, and so it's a higher classification. And so all of the direct access will be from a local street or one of the proposed private streets. So I'm circling here, private street, it's called Tract E here, and that's a private street. And then also over here in the R1 zone, Tract F is also a private street. And so kind of like what happened with phase 1, just because of the way that the street alignment occurs with Southeast Kern Creek Road, and the fact that the code requires for individual sites to take access from the lower classification street, that means that it's difficult to avoid, or in some cases impossible to avoid, having that double frontage on 2 streets. So you've got a private street and a public street, but that happens for that reason. And so the code prefers that you have, if you're going to have that, make sure the access is coming from a lower classification street. Okay, so 7 new local streets being built with this subdivision, plus the extension of Kern Creek Road through the site. And so, of course, frontage improvements on Southeast Run Road also required. Here is the northern part of their street plans. As I mentioned, Tract E is one of the private drives that's over here. Both of those private drives do meet the city standards for private drives, which are a minimum 20-foot right-of-way. And then just a note that Southeast 9th Avenue over here is the one proposed dead-ending street. It is much shorter than 400 feet in length, which is the maximum allowable. It is not proposed to terminate in a circular turnaround because it is so short, and for that reason, the Planning Commission and City Engineer did not take issue with that. And not just that they didn't take issue with it, they did discuss it and found that that wasn't a concern because it's so short. And of course, as always, the fire district is going to have to approve the final design, making sure that their trucks can get in and out easily. So that's the north side. And then on the south side of Kern Creek Road, we can see over here, Tract F, the other private street, also meeting city standards. Lastly, I wanted to zoom in on, or I guess zoom out, but I wanted to show Southeast 10th. We have Southeast 10th Avenue, which is on the northern side, and then Southeast 10th Court. These will be built to, these will be half streets built to the, oh, I don't have them pulled up. They should be here. There we go. So built to these standards. So the northern portion is actually proposed to be a 40-foot right-of-way, and the southern portion proposed a 34-foot, so it's slimmer. And at the bottom here, it will be curving in recognition of the, the direction that the creek flows here, and so it'll have to avoid hitting the creek. I just want to go back. I didn't mean to gloss over the street sections here. So as I mentioned, those the very same local street standards that were required for the streets in phase 1 are also required, of course, for phase 2. So they match up. So that's a 48-foot right-of-way, 18 feet of pavement, curbs, sidewalks, curb-tight sidewalks, and that matches what was done in phase 1. Okay, so finally, as I mentioned before, the site does contain Kern Creek, and the required 70-foot buffer is shown on the submitted plans. And so within that 70-foot buffer, development is prohibited, and the North City residential zone actually, that's on the west side of the creek, explicitly requires that that buffer be preserved in a tract. Whereas on the east side of the creek in the R1 zone, it doesn't have that same explicit requirement for like a dedicated tract, but there still will be the that prohibition on development recorded with the plat. So that can either be done by deed restriction or an easement or any other recorded mechanism prohibiting any development within that 70-foot buffer. And so that does include fences or smaller things that might, structures that might not usually require a building permit. All of that will be prohibited. The NCR zone does provide for things like pedestrian trails or boardwalks or creek crossings or culverts, but that's the only type of development that would be allowed within that buffer. Okay, so we're zooming in here just in case anyone wants to see what that looks like on the lots that do come closer than 70 feet to the creek. So we're looking at the east side of the creek here. And so they show with this dotted line, that's where the 70-foot setback is. And so they also nicely showed how you could fit a normal sized house on the property in a way that honored that 70-foot buffer. And so this is the southern part of that same zone. And so that is the very basic summary and kind of key features of the proposal. As I said, I'm happy to go back and review any of those or answer questions, and the applicant, of course, will do so as well. Oh, I see a hand. I see two.
Sorry,
hands.
I was trying to unmute. I don't see a park anywhere in this. Is that not a requirement in this zone?
Yeah, so parks are not a requirement of any specific zone.
Okay.
They are not. The code is squishy about parks. So the code does say something like parks are encouraged. Developers are encouraged but not required to install parks. However, the council is able to, the council can make findings that a park, based on the consideration of, comprehensive plan goals, for example, or, based on findings that apply to the criteria that we need to look at, which we'll review in a second. The city can require a park to be installed with, or deny an application based on the lack of a park.
Okay, and then the
but
other
that would have to be accompanied by findings that a park was not within near enough vicinity, or something like that.
Okay, and then my other question is the maintaining those open spaces, so what is it, tract I, J, and K? Whose responsibility is it for maintenance on those open spaces? Is it the HOA or is it the city?
Yeah, sorry, I should have clarified that. It is proposed in their application that the HOA would be maintaining those tracks.
And Jerry, I just, in the park thing, we have realized that there's been a number of these come through without parks. So Taylor and I, she does have more coming in, and we are telling them that even though it's not required, we know by the time they get to council that they're going to start wanting to see some neighborhood parks. And so this one kind of got through before we were doing that. But now, from now on, any that you see will probably have, in fact, one of them, we're talking about having 2 small parks in the area. And these are all going to be in that northern area. So
Well,
in
I
the
really do
future-
like the landscape common area. You know, I know it's not technically a park, but I do like that they at least included that. So.
And they could provide some walkways in that area, that buffer zone, like Taylor said, that those are allowed uses. But in future ones, you're going to see neighborhood parks in the future ones that you get, which are coming soon. So
I see Katie's hand up.
Yep. So do you mind going back to the map with the buffer zones with the creek? And you were
Yeah.
showing us how they can still fit normal houses on those lots.
Oh, sure.
I guess my big concerns or questions are, so those lot sizes with that dotted line, would that be considered within the minimum lot size of what we're requiring for the North City residential zone? Like, can that new tax lot essentially be like 5,000 square feet? That just doesn't.
So the lots that we're looking at on this screen are in the R1 low density residential zone.
Okay. And
are you
so you're talking about having a setback. Is that where the new property line is going to be, or that's just how far away the home needs to be?
That's just how far away the home needs to be.
Okay, so the land that's next to Curran Creek, is that not going to be considered? I guess that's just a very, very small open space. But
Yeah.
those are all going to be at least 7,500 square foot lots right there?
Yes, in the R1 zone, they're all at least 7,500.
Okay, it just looks weird with the picture, and I don't know, I'm not digging that spot. Thank you. I was just really confused about that one.
Yeah, sorry if I explained that in a confusing way. I see Joel's hand up also.
So Katie kind of touched on something there that I had an issue with, and that's looking at these lot sizes here. A lot of them, like I just calculated one, for example, its size on here says it's 33.5 by 148.38. By my calculation, that's 4,903 feet, 0.73. So these lot sizes, our minimum code says 7,500 square feet. And yes, it can go down to 5,000, but it cannot be less than 5,000. So if these calculations are coming out right from what I'm seeing the data there, these lots aren't meeting the minimum size. And especially after a big old fire we just had, there's a wooded area right there. Do we want to stuff that many houses that close together next to a wooded area? Just a thought for
Yeah, the city would not be allowed to, if the zone allows for something for lots to be as small as 5,000 square feet, then the city is legally required. And if the application meets all of the other, applicable approval criteria for a subdivision or
one second
for
here.
that. So,
Let me read for exactly under 16.16.040 standards. These are the following standards that apply to an R1 zone. Yep, R1 zone. Lot sizes and dimensions. The minimum lot sizes uses shall be 7,500 square feet. Period. So,
yes.
And it says in no event. So basically, are these two conflicting, or does there have to be some sort of approval process from the council to allow something to be less than 7,500 square feet?
You're looking at two different zonings.
So
Joel.
so all of the properties that are, all of the properties that are to the right of the creek are in R1. Excuse me. And all of the properties that are to the left of the creek are in the NCR zone. So the NCR zone allows lots to be as small as 5,000 square feet. However, if you did see one that was 4,000 some square feet, that will get flagged. A condition of approval for this application is that all of the lots need to comply with the minimum lot sizes and dimensions of
that was just one that
zone.
I randomly grabbed, and I remember doing a few other over the weekend, and I found more that are right there, just under 5,000. Some are a little bit smaller. So, and what's interesting is it does mark on there that it's 5,014 square feet is what it says on the thing there, but the dimensions don't say that. Don't come out to show that. So I have no more questions too. Down there on Southeast Ren Road, why is that road only 40 foot wide and not the 48 foot wide? I don't know if you touched on that and I missed it.
Yeah, the existing right-of-way on Wren Road right now is 40 feet. And so in the conversations with the city engineer, actually back in phase 1, talking about what that required right-of-way width will be, the city engineer agreed, it is within the range of right-of-way widths for that local street classification. And so since the right-of-way was already that size and they developed the plans based on the assumption that the existing right-of-way is what the city would be working with.
Can we
Staff didn't
require them
find
to
it-
have a 48-foot standard road there? Because I have a feeling that they're going to be expanding on this area at some point. So can we require them to have a 48-foot road there? So we have a standard road instead of suddenly a wider, less wide road in the middle of a subdivision?
A 40-foot right-of-way is within the city's required minimum. I think the required minimum is 36. Denise, do you have it on the top of your head? Or 34? Okay. It's a range, so 40 feet is within the required range, and it's the existing right-of-way. If the council wanted to require them to expand that to be 48 feet, it would, I guess the impact would be it would require them to reconfigure their layout there. I imagine they wouldn't be able to fit, quite as many lots. But that's something that the
development on the south side of the road happens. At that time, council could ask for them to dedicate more footage to that road. But Wren Road is never going to be a through street, we don't think. So it's, the 40 foot is probably adequate for what's on it.
Okay, you kind of went in and out there, but I think I got the gist of
sorry.
it. It's never going to be a through street, and we could request them in the future to expand that road, is what you're saying. I have one more thing to bring up on here. So further down inside of the packet, we're going to jump all the way down to way back to the end of it. There's a report from the on the sewer system, which is, as you know, has been a major concern for me, and I've been looking for this type of information to come out. I'm just going to kind of pull it out here. Maybe not. Oh, good golly, the whole packet just came apart. Okay. Right in the first part here, it says wastewater. The treatment plant capacity is the most pressing of the city's utilities. This is sufficient capacity to support all existing growth, but the city is approaching the time when where substantial improvements will be needed. So, first of all, just right in the beginning of the report there, it says the existing growth that we already have. That makes me extremely concerned about adding additional growth. I'm going to continue to read a few things in here that caught my attention. So projecting population increase is not an exact science. The city has been issuing 30 or more building permits per month recently. There is no way to determine that will continue. There are currently more than 1,500 residential units currently approved or on the planning stage. If the current rate of permitting continues for these lots, it would result in a growth rate of over 20%. History tells us that's not sustainable growth. And then I'm going to jump to a chart here in the back. And so on 2021, it shows that the projection looks like from 2019 all the way up to 2025. 2021, they're projecting for this year is to have our percent capacity at 78.7% of the dry weather flow and 62% of the capacity of the wet weather flow. By next year, we're going to be over 90% of dry capacity and at 73% of wet capacity. One more year onto there, we're at almost 95% for dry and over 80% for wet capacity. So that means by the time they get these things built, and that's projecting on 25 units per month. By the time they get these things built, it's gonna basically push us over what's already projected. I have a serious concern about approving this this development, thank you, looking for the word, this development with this type of issue here, because the last thing we want to do is blow up our sewer system because we way over approve stuff. So, and this is something I've been seriously concerned about, and I think it needs to be seriously looked at. I don't think we have the capacity to approve another subdivision.
Claire, do you want to put that letter from Kurt up on the screen?
Sure.
While she's pulling it up too, let me jump into something else real quick. I've mentioned before, law enforcement. I've recently had a conversation with the sheriff. They weren't aware of the previous subdivision that was put out. And so I can almost guarantee they're not aware of this subdivision. We do not have the capacity in law enforcement in our contractual state to approve additional houses because we need to renegotiate that to improve our law enforcement capacity in the city. So we need to look at these infrastructure problems before we start approving more houses. And it seems like we have a new subdivision coming up every single meeting. And that I have some very serious concerns of where we're going to be at if we don't slow down and work on our infrastructure before we approve more houses coming in. Right now, we are not there based upon the numbers and what I'm seeing and what I'm being told directly from the horse's mouth. So.
And I'll just add, this sewage and this issue has been an ongoing topic for us. This isn't something that's new. We've talked about this when the Campanella development came in. It was actually kind of frustrating. I was new to council at the time when we were talking about it, and we brought up these exact issues. I think Mayor Drinkwine probably remembers. The frustrating part for us was we were told we were good for quite a while, and it felt like 6 months went by, and that's when that Kurt gentleman or whatever his name is came up and said, oh, you know what, we're getting really close. We need to have a plan. From my understanding, Denise, correct me if I'm wrong, but have we started that plan? Because I believe we have started that plan.
The plan is probably going to be to me next week.
Yeah, okay.
Talked about it before this meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's the plan for the new plants, the new pump stations. So this is I think this is what the memo that
Yeah, Denise, you keep cutting in and out pretty good.
hold on, let me turn my camera off. Sometimes that helps.
Okay.
Is that better? Do I not? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Can you scroll down to that? Okay. Yeah, keep going. Okay, so here, so the city has been issuing, okay, and then when it says it's stop, go ahead and stop.
That's not the right one, Denise. The one I'm looking at, it came in on May 6th, 2021, according to what I see here.
The date on it is May 6th.
May 6th, 2021. And it says City of Estacada, River Mill Sanitary Sewer Advanced Financing District. And it talks about this is about the districts, but the report's still the same.
Oh, yeah. I think this is we did just get a new one that was added to the packet, Taylor.
Oh, did I get that?
Maybe.
Kurt, it was an email that Kurt sent right before we did the packets. I think that was what you added, Taylor.
It might be the same writing.
I think he just sent it 2 different dates.
Yeah, if it's a different writing, I'll let you know. But right now, it looks like it might be the same writing.
That it might be the same letter.
This is the only one that was in my email inbox. So
okay, then go ahead and scroll down. So that 1,500 residential units that he's talking about are the ones that Taylor has projected that we're going to get. It's not ones that we have already approved. I just want to make that clear. That's what he thinks the total ones are that are on our radar at this time. And then if you go down, Taylor, to that chart, I think this is the same chart, right, Joel? Or
the numbers I was looking at look like they're right. 78.7, 62. Yeah, I think those numbers are right.
okay. And so the state DEQ says when you hit the 85% of your wet weather capacity is when you need to start, planning. Well, that's 2023 when that's going to happen. And we've already got our plan. So we're
You're,
4 years, well, 2 years ahead of the game now.
I'd like to stop you there, Denise. I'm sorry. Look
me?
right above there. It says, we have projected the city to issue 25 building permits per month continuously for the next 5 years. And if you scroll right back up there, it says we've been issuing 30 a month. We're already past what this chart tells us.
Right. But
So
we're 2 years ahead of the planning for our facility plan too, from so I think, our plan is to have that wastewater treatment plant done by 23, 24, not thinking about it in 23, 24, like the state requires you to. And in fact, just today, Curtin,
do we have active plans on the table right now, moving things forward on that?
will within by next week, we will have the active plan. Yep.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Then I think my statement still stands. I can't until there's something in front of me showing that is actually moving forward. I can't in good conscience support something.
I guess you just have my word for it.
Yeah. I'm over.
And I don't think, where's Taylor? I don't know if police is one of the criteria, Taylor, but help inform us on
If
that.
what?
If the police services is one of the criteria, I'm not sure if it is or not.
No, and so we've talked about, we've talked in the past about how capacity, like the statement of capacity, is a requirement at the annexation stage. And so whenever all of these properties were annexed into the city, at that point in time, the police, the sheriff's department, the fire district, the school district, all of those agencies had to submit a statement that basically said, based on the zoning of the property that was coming in, and assuming that property gets developed with the sort of, average density that can be allowed in that zone, does the city have capacity, or will the city have capacity within, I think it's for services within like 3 years of annexation or something like that, to serve that anticipated development.
I highly recommend, Taylor, that you call the sheriff and ask him that question and get their feedback directly, because I guarantee you, based on what they told me, they're not going to give you the same response. Because right now our growth,
that's just the requirement of our code.
I know. There's requirements, yes, and we have the requirements, and we have the numbers to show that. I don't agree with the fact we're going to have capacity, but there's also responsibility as a city councilor beyond just what a code says, and that is to make sure we do the best job for our people and make the right decisions for that. And if our growth is going far beyond what our capabilities are going to be in the next couple of years, we have a responsibility as elected officials to make sure that we represent our people and make good decisions for our city. If this subdivision is going to put us in a position where we could potentially cause issues for the infrastructure, we need to consider that.
Yeah, and Joe, we'll hit this more when we're through this process. Katie, I'll let you go next, and then Paul.
Thank you for putting this packet together, Taylor. It looks very extensive. I would like to point to page 23 of the packet under the review of chapter 16.25 NCR zone development standards, specifically the lot size and dimensions. In this paragraph, it says that the subsection establishes that the minimum allowable lot size for single family dwellings is 5,000 square feet. However, lot 31 in the submitted plans is only shown to be 4,683 square feet in area. Conditions of approval will require that all lots are at least 5,000 square feet in area. I suppose my question for you is, obviously lot 31 would not be an approved lot to be built on if that is going to continue having that lot dimension. But I guess my question's a two-parter. first of all, who discovered or who pointed out that lot 31 does not actually meet the zoning criteria? I only ask because Counselor Litke earlier brought up that him doing the math based on the dimensions of the plots that he's looking at, that they're not all adding up to the minimum lot size. And if that's the case, I guess I want to know what sort of repercussions an applicant would have if they brought forward, you know, what they're saying is a minimum lot size, but then upon, you know, actual implementation or upon study of the plans themselves, not all of them are meeting that minimum criteria. And I guess and then I guess the second one would be, you know, so first, who discovered that and has the oversight of it? And then the second one would be, what would be the repercussions of them kind of duping us for all intents and purposes?
Sure. So, well, I guess I'll respond first to the second one. The way that this works is that the council approves a subdivision, and then the developers do all of the improvements and other requirements that are required by the conditions of approval to be completed before we can approve the plat. So then when they've, you know, built the streets, built the sidewalks, whatever else they needed to do before we can approve the plat, then they send their preliminary plat. So it's the tentative layout. Basically what you're looking at, their layout is the preliminary plat. So when they're ready to record these new lots, they send the plat to us. We check it based on, you know, we look back at the conditions of approval and we say, okay, these are the ones that have to be satisfied before we can approve this plat. Once all of that is satisfied, we submit a letter that they can bring to the county that says, you know, the city has done our review and we find that they have met all of the requirements that the conditions of approval said they needed to do in order to plat. It's at that point that the city does another check to make sure that all of the lot sizes, square footage are, you know, large enough, you know, meet the required minimum lot sizes. And then that goes to the county surveyor's office, and registered surveyors verify the, you know, the dimensions of those lots. And so if their survey team looks at the numbers that they're presenting to us that look like they comply with the conditions of approval, the survey team does their own measurement and checks that, and they find, oh, actually, these numbers are off. They would not, you know, they would kick it back to them and say, we can't approve this plat. I don't know how to do land surveys, and so that's not something that the city has, you know, we don't have that in-house, that goes to the county. But it would be at that stage that a registered surveyor would catch that their numbers were incorrect.
And I don't mean to interrupt you, but I do want to just clarify for my own education purposes, because I don't know the answer to any of this. That process, though, only can happen where a county surveyor comes out and looks at the plot if we have already denied the plot permit.
No, so it comes to the city first.
Okay.
The city makes sure that, you know, it's basically, it's the planner, the city engineer, public works, the fire department, and maybe some other staff, depending on what the requirements of the conditions of approval are. So we coordinate among, you know, the different departments to make sure that all of the conditions that apply to us, our department, are met. And if they're not, we will not send a letter to county saying, you know, go ahead. But if it seems like they're all met, that's when we send the letter to county saying, this looks good to us. Now you make sure that it's actually, you know, the dimensions that they're saying it is, and any other survey related things that I don't know about.
Okay, so they'll always be, no matter what, they'll always be overseen by a county surveyor.
Yes, they have to go to the county before they get officially recorded. And the county records, the county is the agency that actually records the new lot lines anyway. So
Out of curiosity, and I know that we're going to have the applicant here in a minute, what are their ideas about lot 31 if it's not going to meet the minimum? I know we brought up the idea of we're missing a park in there. Is it possible for lot 31 to be used as a potential neighborhood park, or for them to do something else with that space if it's not going to meet the minimum?
Yeah, you know, I am realizing, and it's been a while since I wrote this report. I actually flagged that as being not meeting the minimum lot requirement, and so it is listed in there in the report as an issue.
So did you personally sit down and do the math on every single individual lot?
Oh, no, I don't do the math. I look at the numbers that they present, and I trust that when the county surveyor eventually, actually reviews all of the technical information, they know what they're doing. I'm not qualified to, and I don't think I have the software needed to do that kind of thing.
Hey, just quick, Katie, it says that the lot sizes, if you look at page C006, these are printed on there. You just gotta get a magnifying glass or blow it up on a computer.
Yeah, so when I'm reviewing these, it's really big on a screen, and I can see those square footage numbers.
I guess, based on people being people and making mistakes, I guess I would just assume that maybe math could be done wrong, or that, people could say, oh yeah, that lot right there is 5,300, square feet. But if someone sat down and actually verified whether or not that's a 5,300 square foot lot, I wonder how early in this process that would get flagged. It sounds like you're the person who flagged one of 128 lots. So I give you kudos on that one. Pull the needle out of the haystack, right? But I guess if you found one, I wonder how much you might find if you really sat down and started digging into it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's what we have to do in the plat review process, is really when it comes back, because inevitably there will be some minor changes to the layout. The conditions of approval do say, the plat that they submit needs to be substantially similar to what the council has approved, but we recognize that, based on unforeseen, maybe a, topography issue or something, things might have to shift around. There might be one fewer lot than anticipated. I don't know. And so that's the stage where we go back and meticulously check the actual plat that they're submitting against the conditions of approval that the council issued.
Okay, thank you, Taylor.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you for that clarification as well, too. I think it helps to know that this is just a plat proposal at this point, and that it'll get firmed up as throughout the process. Addressing Councilor Litkey's question about the sheriff, how often or when do we renegotiate our contract with them? Because I would expect that as we renegotiate once they see the actual numbers from the subdivision, that would be factored in. Do you know, or Denise, at what point we do the renegotiation?
Yeah, I was just at our quarterly meeting with them on last Wednesday, and I told them that probably at the beginning of this next budget year, council would be discussing adding police coverage. They need an 18-month notice to add an officer out here. So I said we would probably be looking at a new officer from them in let me see, this is in the 23-24, at the start of the 23-24 year, or two. So the council will start having that discussion this fall about what are we gonna, what do we need to do? Where do we want to expand at?
All right, any more questions there before I move on? Katie?
I'm just going to piggyback off of Councilor Strobel's question to Denise. It sounds like we're under quite a time frame. Is it possible to move up that conversation any earlier than fall?
Yeah, I mean, we could start it, at the end of the summer. Right now, staff's really busy with everything else. So I don't think we could add that to our schedule in the next couple months, but we can certainly get that rolling, in late July, August.
I think we should put a rush on it, especially if we're going to have to wait 18 months after making any sort of a decision. And it's probably going to take this governing board to make it's going to take us some time to make a decision. I think we should be able to have conversation as early on as possible so that we could make a decision as early as possible. And then hopefully by the time any decisions are made, that you guys will have more time as staff to be able to follow through. But it just sounds to me like 18 months is a long time to wait for a police officer when we could probably use those services sooner rather than later.
And just to remind council that you pay for the officer that during that 18 months that they're training, so.
Right. Okay, Joel, did you have one more question before I move on?
I was going to piggyback off of what Katie said, but I realize this isn't about the law enforcement piece, so I don't want to dig into that. We can jump into another council meeting to talk about that.
Okay, thank you very much for that. All right, so we will move on from this point. And Taylor, you have given all your information. Is that right? You're done with your presentation part of it?
Mayor,
Kind
can I
of.
go quick?
I was gonna review again the approval criteria that a city has to apply in making a decision on a land use on a subdivision. And that was gonna be the end of it.
Okay, all right. Joel, one more time, but make it quick. So we
Just
can...
real quick. Yeah. Hey, Taylor, I do want to thank you. I know I've been very harsh on the questions and the statements today. It's not directed at you or anything. I wanted to make
No
sure I
worries.
be very clear on that. I really appreciate all the hard work you do on that. It's a lot of information there. So thanks.
Yeah, no worries at all.
All right. Is there any correspondence regarding this application, Taylor, before I move on?
No.
Okay. I will now read a statement about evidence presented at the hearing. This is my favorite part, by the way. An issue which may be the basis for an appeal to LUBA must be raised prior to the close of the record at the final eventuary hearing on the specific application. Such issue shall be raised with sufficient specificity so as to afford LUBA and the parties an adequate opportunity to respond to each issue. Failure of an issue to be raised at the hearing or in person by letter, or failure to provide sufficient specificity to afford LUBA and the parties an adequate opportunity to respond to the issue precludes an appeal to LUBA on that issue. Okay, next we have, would the applicant please come to the microphone? So do we have the applicant in the audience, sir?
Yeah, I've got Brett coming in, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Taylor, do you know should I bring in anybody else? Anne Marie?
Is Anne Marie? Yeah, and maybe if I can't see the list.
I've got Dave Reichert here.
If Buck Smith is on, I think he's with them too. But Anne Marie for sure, and Brett. Now I can see.
Okay. And David's coming on too.
Anne Marie?
Yes.
There she is.
We have Brett and you and David. Is that good?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So you want to start it, Anne Marie, or who's...
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
My name is Anne Marie Skinner. I'm with PBS Engineering, business address 4412 South Corbett Avenue, Portland. And I would like to thank Taylor and Denise and the city engineering staff actually for working with us on this project. Taylor has done a magnificent job as usual of putting together a very detailed and comprehensive staff report. So I appreciate her. It actually saves me presenting all of that information. So just a couple of things that I would like to mention, perhaps reiterate and chat about regarding some of the
comments that the counselors have made. One of the very first slides, Taylor, you had, and this was probably just an oversight, but you had 155 lots, and it's actually 128. So I just wanted to make sure that that correction was made for the record. There's 101 single-family lots in the NCR and 27 in the R1. Regarding the lot sizes, there is, they are calculated automatically with a software program. So the square footage that is figured there is calculated on a computer. So if someone is coming up with a square footage that is different than what is shown on the map, I'd like to know how. Regarding the one lot that is less than 5,000 square feet, that, and I can explain that, we were not duping anyone. The original preliminary plat that we submitted, when the engineer got to looking at it, after we had submitted it, there were some street connections and radii that needed to be adjusted to meet some of the comments from the city engineer and to have a better street connection layout. And so when he was reworking those lots and that street layout, he clearly inadvertently made one of the lots smaller than 5,000 square feet. And I personally, when I did the original submittal, checked every lot to make sure that it met all of the lot requirements. When he did that revision, he was just trying to get it in before the time of the hearing. So I apologize to you all. I did not look at every lot that he redid. Otherwise, I would have caught that one. And certainly when we go to the final construction drawings, that lot will be eliminated. We'll move it in with the rest of them so that they're all at least 5,000 square feet. Just a point of interest, the NCR zone does allow lots at a minimum of 3,000 square feet for common wall dwellings or 3,750 square feet for duplex or 2-unit common wall dwellings. And as a matter of conservation and recognizing the concerns of the Planning Commission and the City Council, the developers specifically opted not to go with any common wall dwellings that would have allowed for smaller lot sizes, which would have then increased the number of residents and the impacts to the services. So that is why all of the lots are for single family dwellings only, detached single family dwellings. And a little more on the process of the final plat and lot sizes. My dad is a licensed land surveyor, and so I grew up doing surveying. And the surveyor actually is the one so our surveyor, PBS Engineering, when it comes time to do the final plat, he calculates each lot. I check it to make sure that it meets all of the lot size requirements. There is a lot closure that has to be performed for each and every lot. If the lot doesn't close, then it's not a valid lot. And the surveyor is the only one who knows how to do, I don't know how to do that. Surveyor knows how to do it. And he has software that does it. And there's this long calculation that prints out that shows how each lot closes. And if it doesn't close, then he makes adjustments to make sure it does close. And so the final plat that is done is very accurate as to lot size. It is, like I said, it's prepared by a licensed land surveyor on good software, And then, as Taylor said, it is submitted to the county surveyor, who does all the same lot closures to make sure that the lot closures that our licensed land surveyor did are accurate. So I just wanted to reassure you on that. Regarding the park situation, it is true that the park is not a requirement of the code. The intent of the open space tract on the west side of the creek is to act as a neighborhood park for this development. That is why it is, that's why it's designated as a tract rather than owned by each of the individual lots. So it will be owned by the homeowners association, and it will be maintained by the homeowners association. The developer intends to install like a little trail or pathway through it so that the residents of the neighborhood can enjoy that amenity and have some form of recreation on the site within walking distance of their house. We can certainly dedicate it to the city if that is the council's desire and have it be a public park. That's up to the council. Oh, what else? Sheriff's office, there's unfortunately in the code, there's no impact statement requirement for sheriff. So that's not included in the narrative. All the other code criteria, to the best of my knowledge and ability, have been met. We try to be as accurate as possible in making sure that we're meeting all of the code criteria. We did provide all of the impact statements. Certainly adding more people is going to add to the services, but we've been working with the city engineer on sewer and water and storm. There's been no indication given that this project will push the existing system over capacity. And I can confirm and reiterate what Denise said regarding the new sewer treatment plant, that is in the works, actively in the works. And I guess I can't think of anything else. I think I covered everything everyone mentioned. I have David Holt here. He's the traffic engineer, so he can run through the traffic report. And then when he's done, you can ask any of us any questions that you may have.
Okay, great.
Good
Hey,
evening,
David.
everyone.
How are
Thank
you?
you for having us tonight. I'm very well. Thank you.
Good.
There haven't been too many questions or concerns raised with the traffic study that I've heard, so I'll try to be pretty quick here. We prepared a traffic study at PBS that covered both phases 1 and 2 of the subdivision. So you've already reviewed and approved a lot of the stuff I'm talking about. The study was scoped last fall, working through the city staff and the city's on-call consultant, Corinne McLeod. Identified we would analyze 3 different intersections. One is the River Mill Road intersection at Eagle Creek, which is going to be expanded, or was expanded, excuse me, with phase 1 to add that 4th leg on the east side as Curran Creek Road. The other 2 were River Mill at Highway 224, and then to the south, Eagle Creek Road at Hinman Avenue. We were able to borrow off of traffic data that were collected in September and December of 2019, conveniently collected by another consultant. We were doing that in order to avoid the depressed traffic volumes that we've been seeing throughout the country, of course, thanks to COVID. So the 2019 data is estimated to approximate more realistic, AKA normal conditions. Those data were adjusted up to try to estimate future conditions at the time that these projects would build out. 3% background growth, just as a generic number. It's a number that we found based off of traffic volumes collected regularly on the highway. We also added in the Valley View Estates, the adjacent subdivision to the south, and the impacts that it's adding, as well as, of course, phase one. Then the impact, the delta here for consideration tonight, it's a 128 new homes for phase two. Really, in terms of transportation traffic impacts, of course, the major thing is to continue extending Current Creek Road farther to the east from its phase one construction. Overall impacts and improvements, let's see, combined phases 1 and 2 had about a 1% traffic impact at Highway 224, still well within ODOT standards. We did see some limitations at the Eagle Creek, River Mill, Current Creek intersection and made some recommendations for improvements there. After getting some feedback from Clackamas County as the roadway authority, we have the current configuration that is within the conditions of approval. This will maintain stop control eastbound, westbound on River Mill and on Current Creek. And 3 of the 4 legs will have dedicated left turn lanes. That's northbound Eagle Creek, southbound Eagle Creek, and westbound Current Creek Road. Those are the primary improvements slated within the conditions of approval for phase 1. Again, it's all been addressed with phase 1 and approved. And the phase 2 traffic impacts come in under that same blanket. They were analyzed in the same traffic study. I believe that's everything I have to present tonight, so I'm going to turn it back over. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. All right, has council got the information they needed on this? Are there any questions from council regarding this? Joel?
This is for Anne Marie. Your question earlier was where you kind of got I got my calculation.
So you need to talk in the microphone. We can't hear you.
Sorry. Looking at the little paper. My calculation, I'm going to point you to lot 84. And if you want to pull out a calculator, it's 33.5 is the width by 146.38 is the length of the lot. By my calculations, that comes out to 4,903.73.
Hang on, let me blow it up because it's
you'll
too tiny on my screen. I have to look at it. Okay.
Yeah, I had to use my magnifying glass behind me.
Yeah.
To find it.
Okay, so lot 84.
Yep.
Well, so here's the thing. You have to, the southern lot line is 146.38. The northern lot line is 148.43. Then the western lot line is 33.5. But the northern has 2 lot lines. One is 12.34 and one is 22.54. So you can't do just a straight like 146.38 times 33.5. Okay, that won't get you the right square footage.
All right, I will have to recalculate and see if my calculations are wrong based upon that information. It's really small, so if I'm wrong, I apologize.
Okay, Paul?
This question's for David. With the traffic study, are there any concerns with the amount of homes coming in and out of the subdivisions, I guess phase 1 and phase 2? Do we have enough access points in the case of an emergency?
Well, a subdivision of this size, of course, is required to have at least 2 access points for fire. And yes, that is addressed by connecting Current Creek Road into Eagle Creek. And then the subdivision also connects to Hinman Avenue via Glen and Wren.
Okay, all right, that helps. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions before I move on? No, thank you very much. And I will move on, and we appreciate you presenting. That was great. You did a great job. And I think you answered the questions that we had. So thank you. Next, do I have any speakers that wish to speak on this? Sadie, anywhere in the audience?
I
In the
don't
queue?
see any hands raised. Let
Okay.
me just do a quick scan. No. Nope.
Okay, any last comments from staff? Are we good on that? All right. Moving right along, we will now close the public hearing and reopen the city council. And I'm assuming at this time, we're looking for a vote for approval. So if somebody could give me a
I'll make a
motion,
motion
yea or
to
nay.
approve with conditions.
Okay, Justin's got a motion to approve with conditions on the floor.
Second.
Do I have a second to that?
Yeah, second.
Okay, first and second.
I
All
just,
those,
can we just clarify that's with the planning commission conditions, right, Justin?
yes,
Thank
yes.
you.
Okay, and Sadie, I'm gonna do a roll call on this one, if that's
Okay.
okay.
Sure. Counselor Dunsmere,
Like to go last, please.
Okay,
Counselor Gates,
Yes.
Counselor Hughes,
No.
Counselor Lidkey,
No.
Counselor Strobel,
Yes.
Counselor Tenbush,
Yes.
Mayor Drinkwine,
I'm gonna have to say yes.
and Counselor Dunsmere.
I am also gonna have to say yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. All right, moving right along. We are now at another public hearing. I will open it. I think that's the first of the financials, right? That I'm opening this one under. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, can I have a 5-minute recess, please?
Yeah, is everybody good with that? 5 minutes? Okay. All right.
Thank you.
You betcha. Okay. Everybody chiming back in? Well, I'm glad, Katie, you were thinking about us old people. I needed a break.
Yes, I did it for all you old people.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. Is everybody back online then? We're good? Everybody's here? All right, great. Okay, so now
You're
we're at the
missing
vote. I
Justin.
called for a roll call vote on this from Sadie. And we all voted, and I think it was what was it, 5-on-2?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we can move on from this one, and now we're in the financials. So I will read
Yeah.
the public hearing. We'll go out of the city council into the public hearing.
You don't have to do the land use one. Do you have the other one?
I gave him a shorter version.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got the public hearing script for advanced finance district. Is that the one I'm reading
Okay,
from?
perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
All
Yep.
right, great. All right, so I will read this. I will now open the public hearing to discuss the advanced finance district cemetery road water line construction. I will ask staff to review the staff report. So who's going to present?
Me.
Okay, great. You're up.
Okay. And the report is going to be exactly the same for all three, so it will shorten the next one. So I'm going to
Okay,
talk
great,
about
great.
them in general.
All right.
The advanced finance district is like most people hear it like a latecomers agreement. And when we put the water line out to the industrial park years and years ago, there was a latecomers agreement for any property that was along the line that if they ever wanted to develop in the future, that they would have to pay for their share of bringing that in, because at the time they had opted out of sharing.
Yeah.
So I'm just, that's the process behind this. So this is it's a way to finance the development and a payback. They are collected for a proportionate share of the minimum size of the utility that would be the responsibility of that owner if they would have did development before this line was there. And so at this time, and until anyone wants to develop, there is no obligation imposed now or ever on the property unless they elect to develop their properties.
Yeah.
And so, some of these properties are going to develop. In fact, I think it's the second one where Brent Grantham and Bill Highlands are the people that have to pay back for their portion. Those are probably going to be paid back right away. But then there's others, for example, the cemetery water line. Those people lived on Cemetery Road forever. They aren't in the city limits. They're probably never going to come in the city limits. And unless they want to sell their property to a developer, they're never going to have to pay this back. So it's only paid back if you develop your property in the future, and you'd have to be in the city limits also. So, so this one is for the water line that was taken from where it ended on Cemetery, all the way up Cemetery. They bored it through the mountainside and into the Holt development there on Deuce Road. And so
Okay.
this one is for the water line, this first one.
Okay, great. Thank you. And there are no speakers wishing to speak on this at all?
I
Sadie?
don't know, Sadie?
If there's anybody in the audience that wishes to speak on this, can you use the raised hand function, please? Nope.
Nobody? Okay, great. Council have any questions before I leave this? Okay, no questions from council. Then we will come out of the public hearing and back into the city council. I'll do this one quick. Can I have a motion to accept?
So actually it's the resolutions down under council business that you'll just approve those when it comes time.
Okay, so do I have to move in and out for all of these?
Yeah, move into the other one. Yep.
All right, we'll open the public hearing again for, let me see, which one am I on? Resolution 2021-006, a resolution designating the River Mill Road Sanitary Sewer Improvement Project as an advanced finance public improvement and providing for advanced finance reimbursement from befitted property owners.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, same thing. Say it's for exactly the same thing, just now it's the sanitary sewer through up. This is the one that probably these people will probably be developing their property. So we should see this close to $400,000 reimbursed at the time they want to develop.
Okay, great. All right, no speakers on the line, Sadie, on this one. Okay, I will now close the public hearing on this finance district, and I will open up the city council and go to the next one. Okay, we will now, let me see where I'm at here. Is that all?
60.
It's the River Mill Road one, yeah, number 3.
Number 3. Oh, okay. Resolution 2021-006, a resolution designating the River Mill Road Sanitary Sewer Improvement Project as an advanced finance public improvement and provided for advanced finance reimbursements from the befitted property owners. Is that the one we're at?
Yep, and this one again, there are a couple that might develop, but most of these people have been there forever and they aren't even in the city limits. But if they were to develop or sell to a developer, then they would have to be reimbursed.
Same. Okay. Any speakers on the line?
I don't see anybody's hand.
Okay, I will now close this public hearing and open the city council back up. Now, at this time,
yes,
I can ask for a vote. Is that right?
I would, just move on down to city council business there.
Okay, city council business.
And there are those 3 resolutions there in the council business.
You want a motion?
Yeah, I need a motion for that.
I will move to approve resolution number 2021-004, a resolution designating the Cemetery Road Waterline Improvement Project as an advanced finance public improvement and providing for advanced finance reimbursement from benefited property owners.
Okay,
great. And I'll need a second on that.
Already did.
Joel.
Oh, okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay, it passes. Thank you very much for that. Now, let me see if I can catch up to myself here and where we're at. I think we were at the resolution 2021-008, a resolution to designate vertical housing.
Nope, we still have
Nope.
2 more
We
resolutions
have
to pass.
5 and 6 left.
Yeah, so I
Yeah,
move to
you guys are
approve
killing me.
resolution number 2021-005, a resolution designating the Southeast Curran Creek Drive Sanitary Sewer Improvement Project as an advanced finance public improvement and provide for advanced financed reimbursement from benefited property owners.
Okay, great.
Second.
I got a first and second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay, motion passes. Katie, you want to hit it again?
I move to approve resolution number 2021-006, a resolution designating the River Mill Road Sanitary Sewer Improvement Project as an advanced finance public improvement and providing for advanced finance reimbursement from benefited property owners.
Okay, can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I've got a first and second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, now I'm figuring I'm at the, help me out here. I'm at the, which one? I'm at the
Housing needs.
housing needs analysis contract execution. Okay, we're on the right one now.
Let me turn the book over.
All right, so who's going to talk on that? That would be you, Taylor.
Yeah, I think Denise and I are gonna tag team
it?
this.
Okay.
And before we start, I will just say that the project manager from Angelo Planning Group, Matt Hasty, is on call and available to join in at the council's request if there was anyone here who wanted to ask any questions of the consultant that was proposed for a selection. So you can let me know and I can send him a message if you do want to bring him in for questions.
Okay, great. How does council feel about that?
Or at any time, I mean, if that was, if you wanted to do
when
that
you're-
later,
as we're
that's
going
fine
along.
too.
Okay.
So Taylor, you're gonna explain the bids and the reasoning.
I can go through the the updated staff report, if that's helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a different and hopefully more helpful staff report than the first one you received. And I'll apologize again for not including the full text of the proposals that we received and have made a note to self that that's helpful to put in the packets. So yeah, just a little bit about the genesis, and I won't go too much into this because most of you are familiar with the year or two of conversations that have been going on among the city council and other committees and staff about housing issues in the city. It has come up on a few occasions. The topic of housing needs analysis has come up. We participated in the regional housing needs analysis that Clackamas County did. We got the preliminary or baseline findings for Estacada in the 2019 housing memo. Those are not intended to replace a housing needs analysis, but to sort of get us started and give us sort of a snapshot, high level idea, knowing that it's not as in-depth or ground truthed. So it's not as accurate as a housing needs analysis should be. And now at this point, it's going on 2 years old. So the last and only full housing needs analysis that we've had was from 1979. So that's obviously not something we can depend on to make decisions about residential land supply. And since we had the 2019 housing memo done for us, we have rezoned a lot of land to newly allow different types of housing, so multifamily or, like cottage clusters or duplexes where they weren't previously allowed. So there's been a lot of change, and of course, as we've all seen even tonight, a lot of growth in the city. And so anyway, all of those things kind of added up to it making sense for the city. The city's long overdue for a housing needs analysis, and also for public engagement and participation around the sort of so what that comes with a housing needs analysis. When you adopt a housing needs analysis, you're basically saying, okay, we
Yes.
recognize.
Is Dom down there?
Okay, we recognize that you know, the city has these identified needs related to housing, or will have these needs in the next 20 years. And when you do that, you need to respond to the findings by, you know, implementing some kind of change or changes to, maybe it's to your code, maybe it's a programmatic change, policy changes that would then address the identified need. Well, I think most people here would agree that if a city does that without some robust public engagement around a big change, you know, take for example, Ordinance 2019-005. If that was done without, you know, the EOA advisory committee giving all of that input, without the public survey giving all of that input, without the multiple extra opportunities for people to attend a public hearing, the community doesn't feel good about that. It doesn't feel like something that they, you know, participated in and helped to develop, and the city won't have as much confidence that the changes they're proposing are going to be supported by the community. So that was one of the reasons, and it's something that kind of we've heard among council, the concern about, wanting to make sure that the community has an opportunity to be involved in that process. And so that's why that was the housing strategy was an additional piece that was added on top of the basic HNA, which would be a more of a like action plan development and sort of like a visioning process, visioning/action plan type thing, right? Where you take the identified need from the housing needs analysis, and then you bring that to the community and say, what are we going to do about this? And also the firm would be doing, you know, a policy review and recommending based on their technical knowledge and experience, you know, what are some strategies that they know about. So anyway, that's kind of the genesis behind why both of those things were included in the RFP. And those were two separate components of the RFP. So I'm not sure on exactly what page of the report it probably says in the staff report here, but on the in the RFP, it lists out the components of the project, and one of the components is the HNA, the housing needs analysis, that is compliant with ORS, whatever it is, the state regulations around HNAs. And then a separate component is a housing strategy that would be that kind of like action plan element and policy analysis. And so those were two basic things. The housing strategy was explicitly, you know, noted to be something that the city would decide after receiving the proposals, whether or not that would be included. And the reason that we did it that way is because in January, around the time that the RFP went out, we weren't sure what the budget was going to look like. I mean, I think that's basically the basic reason why that was, we didn't want to be sure that we were including the housing strategy extra component. So we're now at this point, we know that there is room in the budget for the housing strategy piece. And the two proposals that we received, one of them, the one from Echo Northwest, which is a great firm. I personally know the project manager who submitted the proposal. She's awesome. She worked on the Clackamas County HNA. but they failed to include the additional housing strategy. They just proposed a basic HNA. And so Angelo Planning Group submitted their proposal, which includes both the HNA, and they also, recognizing what we asked for in the proposal, asking for that optional housing strategy extra component. They proposed both a basic HNA and the additional optional housing strategy component. And they listed out, as you can see in their proposal that's attached. They gave us the kind of price breakdown if we decided not to go with the extra housing strategy piece, what that would look like, and then what it would look like if we did decide to go with the extra piece.
So I'll go ahead and interject one other thing here. One of the things when we were scoring the criteria on these, we knew how important it was to include the community in this, issue to get input from everyone. And also in talking to some people, well, actually it was our attorney that we were talking to. He's done a lot of land use things, and he says you really need to look for the company that, for example, for vacant lands, some companies are going to get on and look at the map and see where there's nothing, and they're going to call that a vacant land. And he goes, it really needs to be evaluated because that vacant land might not be anything that could be developed. And, when we were comparing the two proposals, both from great firms, but when we compared them and looking the hours and the methods that they used to come to these agreements, we just felt like the Angelo Group would be more accurate and do more field work than the other company was proposing to do. They had, I think if you look at theirs, they had like 5 hours of meeting time to meet with the public, and just we felt like we were going to get a more accurate evaluation with the Angelo Group when we looked at the certain things that we were asking for in the RFP. It's really a confusing process. We're going through it now with the TSP update to look at those things and try to figure out who's going to meet your needs better.
Okay. Joel?
Oh,
I'm confused why you said that there was no housing strategy piece, because task 4 in the proposal on page 7 says housing strategy. So wonder if you could enlighten us on that a little bit.
Yeah, so every HNA includes what is often called a policy analysis and is often also called a housing strategy. They're interchangeable elements of a basic HNA. And so the basic HNA will give you a sort of I would compare it to the same thing that we got with the 2019 housing memo. It's sort of like a starting point on a full housing needs analysis, but it is not intended to serve as a complete housing needs analysis. And so that's the same kind of thing. The policy analysis or housing strategy component of an HNA, of any and every HNA, it is a starting point for the city to then develop a full housing strategy action plan type document that is informed by, among other things, community engagement, which would not have been as much of, or I think any part of the policy analysis. I think they would have had meetings with the technical advisory committee, but they weren't proposing, any like open house or additional activities like Angelo was proposing with their housing strategy project as a separate project, was proposing all of these additional activities Did that
Okay.
help clarify anything?
Yeah, I think, Katie, go ahead. I think Katie has something.
Well, I just wanted to throw out my own, I guess, experience or opinion. The Eco Northwest proposal, they are the ones that did the county H&A back in 2019. Something I wanted to point out to everybody, is that in June of 2019, I attended the C4 retreat, which was all of the cities having their representatives gathering for a meeting to talk about housing and transportation. And it was a really awesome opportunity for us city representatives to get a sneak peek as to what the H&A was going to say. So I got to actually see the reaction of every city representative in the room when they got to see their housing needs analysis for the first time. And it was really astounding how many people were disappointed at how outdated the numbers were from Eco Northwest at the time that we received the first draft of the H&A. And that ended up being the case really throughout the entire process, was that a lot of us city representatives were looking at the data that Eco Northwest was putting in front of us saying, yep, these are the numbers for your city. And every single one of us knew that those numbers they were using were outdated. And we talked today about, you know, how a lot has changed in 2 years. What's really sad is that baseline H&A that Eco Northwest prepared for our city, of course, we were part of the greater H&A with the county, but the one that they prepared for our city specifically is already obsolete and outdated. We've already exceeded the projections for their 20-year growth that they projected 2 years ago, because they were using outdated numbers and didn't actually take any of the time to come into our city and ask us, hey, do you think we should be using these numbers, or do you think we should be looking for this kind of information somewhere else? Because I never had anyone from Eco Northwest reach out to me during the period of time that they were putting together the baseline H&A with the county. And I was really, really disappointed, because if they had asked, we would have been able to tell them the numbers they were using was outdated. So that being said, I really am comfortable, more comfortable, I should say, using a company that is not Eco Northwest, based on my own experience and seeing the quality of work that they produce at the end. I don't want to pay any amount of money, but especially the amount of money that we're looking at spending for our housing needs analysis, just to end up with something that is going to be outdated or obsolete within another 2 to 5 years. So I just wanted to throw that out there and share that perspective with everyone, because I got to be in the room when all of us city representatives got to see the H&A for the first time, and every single person was disappointed. I can't think of one city representative that said, oh yeah, these numbers, they accurately reflect what's happening in my city. So I wanted to share that perspective with everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Joel?
All right, so when I went through and I was kind of analyzing the data between both of them, of course, setting aside what Katie said, I mean, I wasn't there and I can't speak on behalf of what someone else was thinking or anything else in that area. So I don't want to inject that into my analysis. I'm going to inject what I looked at here. I looked at the cost difference of about $35,000 against the $40,000. So it's $35,000 more than what this one is. So I had to look at myself and say, hey, was the information and what their strategy is really worth $35,000 more? And what is the backing, and what is the experience, and what is basically the resume of Eco Northwest? Now, when I went through and looked, the strategy may be a little bit different, but they still technically cover the same things. And the Eco Northwest, and including, yes, they even have, I count 4 open houses on their timeline. So they have the open houses. They all have the same things, just in different ways to go about them. And that was my analysis there. Also, and I started looking, I said, okay, well, what kind of things do they have? Look at the resumes of the people doing it. But I went a little bit further, and if you scroll back far enough, pages, well, they have other cities that they've done things for. And yes, the Clackamas County was technically something that they did do. So that gives them already a head start in our area a little bit to understand what they're going to be challenging up against. Now, do they use old numbers? No, and it's just our responsibility to make sure they don't use those old numbers by being involved in that process. But nonetheless, what is it really worth $35,000 more to for what the companies are doing, and I just didn't see the benefit between the two. And so that's why I felt that Eco Northwest was a better option for the money. So yeah, just from a technical analysis across the way.
Joel, you do realize that they didn't put any money in for the strategic planning of the last part that was about 20,000 of Angelo's money. It wasn't a complete bid. You realize that, right?
Task 4 has a total of 75 hours, which is $11,875, which task 4 is housing strategy. From what I'm seeing on the paper.
What page is that on, Taylor?
That would be between page 8 and 9.
Hold on,
Oh,
Taylor.
9 is the actual numbers. And actually on page 7 identifies task 4 as housing strategy. And task 4 has 50 hours with the project director and 25 hours with the project manager. And it has direct expenses and everything else in there as well. So.
You're muted, Denise.
To address that, Taylor, and show what part they didn't respond to in the RFP, maybe.
Yeah, so what I was just describing, the housing strategy that they list out in task 4 of their proposal is the baseline basic housing strategy, aka policy analysis, that every HNA has to have. It is not the separate additional deeper dive community informed housing strategy project that we are talking about, that we said would be an option for the city to decide after receiving proposals whether or not to include that piece in the project. So yeah, I'm not sure what else there is to say. They don't propose additional, Angelo proposed additional community engagement activities serving that additional housing strategy project. ECHO proposed the bare minimum for an HNA.
Okay, Paul, you had something you wanted to add there?
I think that's just it. The clarification that Angelo gave us a complete what do we call it, packet there, and the other one did not. And I think that's a big basis for the recommendation from the staff, is that one's complete and one's not. And from that standpoint, I'm happy with the staff's recommendation.
Okay. All right. So any more questions to this before we put it up for a vote? No? Okay. So
I'll make a
I will put
motion
it
to
up.
approve the Angelo planning groups.
Okay. So I have a
I'll
first.
second.
I have a second. Let's do roll call, Sadie.
Okay. Counselor Dunsmuir,
Aye.
Counselor Gates,
Yes.
Counselor Hughes,
Yes.
Counselor Lidkey,
Oh, it doesn't matter in the end, I guess. Fine, yes.
Counselor Strobel,
Yes.
Counselor Tenbush,
Yes.
Mayor Drinkline.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Sadie. Okay. Now, next thing on our list is resolution 2021-008, the one I talked about before that I was a little ahead of myself. A resolution to designate vertical housing development zone in the city of Estacada. So we've all been there. We've all talked about it. We've seen it. We've heard Matt, and some of us has heard Matt up with the county commissioners. So Matt, I'm gonna let you talk about that a little bit.
Okay, thank you. Everyone can hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. Well, Mr. Mayor, I guess I'll ask, noting the late hour, would you like a shallow, medium, or deep dive here?
Well, considering we've been over this once before, I think you can go shallow on this one, Matt.
Okay, I'll try and cover the most important points, and
Okay.
then if there are additional questions, then we can jump into those.
All right.
I think at this point, we've covered the concept of a vertical housing development zone. It's a tax abatement program aimed at incentivizing mixed-use development in a city's core. Specifically, it offers a 20% tax abatement for structural improvements, in other words, not land, for each floor above the ground floor. So for a 2-story building, a 20% tax abatement; for a 3-story building, a 40%, and so on. As noted on page 3 of the staff report, we're hopeful that this vertical housing development zone downtown will encourage new mixed-use development downtown. Rooftops combined in a commercial core will help support the businesses that exist there. You know, in theory, there are more customers within close proximity to shop and dine at the establishments there. And then finally, while this is a tax abatement program, sort of counterintuitively, the hope is that this will spur long-term community wealth and a larger tax base, because once that abatement period expires, you have assessed values on the rolls that would not theoretically have existed but for this program. So as far as the discussion piece goes, I'll probably gloss over this first section and just note that, again, the proposed boundaries align with the city's downtown zone. That's a land use designation, the D zone, and they also align with the urban renewal area. So those will be 3 different zones: 1 land use zone, 1 a special district, the urban renewal area, and then now this special overlay where a tax abatement will be available, all sharing the same boundaries and all sort of working harmoniously to try and spur mixed-use development in the city's core. The section on displacement, which is on the bottom of page 3 of the staff report, is worthy of noting. This is something that we haven't talked about so far. State statutes require that the city, quote unquote, consider displacement of residents through the introduction of a vertical housing development zone, and it gives no further guidance on what consider means. After looking at what other jurisdictions have done to meet this requirement, in some situations, the staff prepared a separate memo. In other situations, the staff included their remarks in the staff report, which is what I've elected to do here. The concept of displacement basically just says, by introducing this new program or incentive, are we creating the potential to displace folks from their current homes through either direct or indirect displacement? Direct would mean that the property that they're living in gets purchased and redeveloped, and so therefore they have to move. Indirect displacement would mean that they get to stay, but because the economic conditions of the district have improved so dramatically that rents in the area begin to come up to levels that become unaffordable, and then they're forced to move. So there's direct and indirect displacement. In looking at our downtown core, the most likely areas for displacement would be the few single-family homes that are sprinkled throughout downtown that would potentially, if there are renters there, potentially they would either be redeveloped or rents would escalate. The only other site where we have a larger concentration of residents downtown, at least at this point, would be at the McRae Motel site. So between 3rd and 4th on the west side of Main Street. I'm sure you're familiar with it. This was probably considered by most folks to be a fairly ripe redevelopment site, just in the sense that the current structures are probably beyond their useful life and somewhat neglected. And so in theory, in a commercial district that's sort of revitalizing the way downtown Estacada is, it's a potential redevelopment site. And so I would say that that's the most likely area for direct displacement. The question, though, is will the vertical housing development zone be a direct cause of potential displacement? In my remarks, I've said that while there is potential for displacement in the downtown zone, I don't think it's reasonable to draw a straight line between the vertical housing development zone incentive and any displacement. So I suppose the council can either agree or disagree with that assessment, but that's where I come down on it after looking at it, as that yes, displacement is possible, but would it be a direct cause of the vertical housing development zone? I would say probably not. Yes, this program is meant to incentivize new development, but it will likely not occur at such a rapid rate that folks are going to be forced to vacate their houses and their current residences, especially in any sort of like rapid fashion. So again, that assessment there is required by statute, and so we've included that there. Alternatives here, of course, are to not approve this resolution. You could elect to look at other alternatives. I'll just note that the committee that you all appointed a short while ago on housing affordability and diversity have taken a look at the vertical housing development zone and are going to include it in their recommendations to City Council. So they like the program and would like to see it introduced. But again, they don't make the final call, the City Council does. And so that goes to you, but just note that they are in favor of it as a committee.
Okay.
Next steps are the obvious things. If you were to go ahead and approve this resolution, we just notify the tax assessor and then go to work just creating the application forms and doing all the administrative stuff to make this program possible. The financial impact, I will point you to attachment number 4, which says estimate for City of Estacada proposed vertical housing zone. So what I asked the assessor's office to do is to suppose that the project at 344 Main Street were to be constructed and to suppose that it took advantage of a potential vertical housing development incentive. So this table shows what type of numbers on an annual basis the different taxing districts would be foregoing. So again, this isn't lost revenue, it's foregone revenue. The difference being that all of the existing assessed value that's currently on the rolls remains on the rolls and is not taken off. But added value due to new construction would be where they enjoy the incentive, the 20% or 40 or 60% abatement, whatever it ends up being. So in this case, it's a 20% abatement for that second story of residential units at 344 Southeast Main. And you can see on an annual basis, they total up to about $2,000 in savings for the developer, which in operating cost is not insignificant. But to each individual taxing district, I would argue that the overall impact is pretty negligible. The chair of the county commission didn't really like that assessment if you watch the video. But that remains my opinion. I understand that budgets are tight at all levels and all taxing districts are facing the same dilemmas we all are in trying to make dollars go as far as they can. I guess I would just say that if the library district, for example, can't afford to forego $46.55 annually, they've probably got other issues they need to worry about. So anyway, I don't mean to be dismissive or flippant regarding budgets. I know these things are important and tax dollars are important, but the cumulative impact to the developer does move the needle. The impact to each little taxing district, I don't believe is worthy of concern. The other attachments are just the map and then a list of all the affected properties. And then, of course, attachment 1 is the resolution itself. You do have the option to introduce additional criteria beyond those that the state statutes require. I'm not recommending that you create new criteria, but that's possible. If you did want to do that, we'd probably want to pass them through the attorney before we enacted those through resolution. I think that's what I would like to say, Mayor, Mr.
Okay.
Mayor.
Great, thank you very much for that. Any questions for Matt before we continue on? I think we've all visited this and some of us have seen the video. We're sorry that you had to go through that. Katie, you got something you want to add?
I just wanted to thank Matt for everything that you do. Seriously, you threw together this vertical housing district or development zone it's beautiful. I love it. And I feel like this came up as a brief passing moment of an idea back when we were talking about the stall cut property that's currently being developed. And ever since then, you've just been going with this. And I want to say thank you for all your hard work in putting this together and for going before the Board of County Commissioners in our stead. I am sorry about the way that they treated you, but I appreciate you being there. And I just wanted to say thank you for everything. This is amazing and I'm very excited about it.
Hey, I appreciate that. In the end, they voted to opt in, so it's all good.
All right.
I want to say ditto what Katie said. And
Okay.
great job, Mr. Estacada, man.
That's it. Okay, so it looks like I need a motion on the floor.
I make a motion of second consideration of ordinance 2021-004, an ordinance approving zone change and amending the comprehensive plan map and zoning map.
I'm sorry, that's the wrong
That's the
one.
wrong
We are
one,
approving
Bill.
resolution 2021-008, establishing a vertical housing development zone.
Thank you. So I got a motion on the floor. Can I have a second?
Second.
All right, I got first and second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Great. Thank you, guys. And Joel, you might as well just read the next one since you already burst.
Technically, I made the motion already. Second that one. Do I need to remake it or do you want me
Yeah,
to?
go ahead and read it out.
I move to approve the second consideration of ordinance 2021-004, an ordinance approving zone change and amending the comprehensive plan map and zoning map.
Okay, I got a first on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Also,
First, okay, first and second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, we are now at the common sense sanctuary discussion. Joel, I'll give it to you.
As tired as I am now, I'm sorry if I go wacky on there. I can't even read the paper right. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and share screen here. Let's see. So I sent a bunch of stuff out earlier. I'm not sure if you guys got a chance to take a look at them. Took a little while to track some things down. So, all right. So what I did, some of the things that I sent out earlier, I actually broke them down into these slides so we can talk a little bit about them. This is the Baker City Common Sense Sanctuary Resolution. And while I'm not a big fan of the actual name, the concept behind it is a really good one because what it does is it basically identifies the issues in an actual resolution that the city's having and openly says, hey, we support our people. This is the problems we're having, and we don't support some of the actions that have come from a higher level. So basically the first one is puts into whereas the Oregon Governor's Executive Order 2003 declaration of emergency due to COVID-19 and all subsequent related OSHA guidance and present future executive orders extensions are arbitrary, ineffective, and draconian. So I felt that was kind of important because of some of the recent issues and a lot of the feedback from the community that's been giving us about about some things going on and all the letters we've been receiving and emails and everything else. So, and my screen went off. There it is. So, do you want me to present all the way through? Or should I stop for people raising hands? Cause I see Katie.
No, that's fine. Let's just get right from here. Let's see what we got going on. So go ahead and put your screen down and I'll.
Yeah, let me,
Okay, Katie.
Okay, so I understand what it is, but I really would like it if someone could just tell me, what does it actually do?
it's not an actual order to say that it changes anything. It's a resolution identifying that we as a council in the city stand behind and make declarations of the issues that we have with what's going on, and we basically stand behind our people. It does actually declare a state of emergency in regards to if you read the top there, economic, mental, and criminal activity crisis. Now you can choose the pieces out of there that fit with what we want to do as Estacada. We don't have to follow everything word for word that they say, but the identifying basically, as you go through, you'll see where they point out that we don't have the power to stop anything from the higher levels, but it's causing damage to our people. And we want the state and the counties and everybody above us to know that as a city, that this is an issue for our people and that we're speaking out against it, and that we don't agree with it. And we're speaking out for the people on behalf of the people and making it known.
Yeah, and Denise, didn't the county put out one of these too, asking the governor to, they put out their own resolution, their own proclamation, from what I
Yeah, they
understand.
did their own letter to
Yeah.
that thing, and yeah.
Do we have any idea of what that reads like? Maybe we could take a look at that and decide if something like that might work for us.
Yeah, I'll check with them. They did do a resolution, but I can't remember what it was for, and it was a while back, right?
Yeah,
Mayor?
it was a while back. I heard they sent it out.
It was maybe about 2 or 3 weeks ago. That's all. It was right before the last bump up to extreme. So I think they probably sent it that day.
But do you think if that was the letter, do you think they did a resolution?
I don't know of any resolution. They did the letter though.
I'll check.
But we
I'd be
might
more
be able to
supportive
take
of a
some
letter than
verbiage
I
from
would
that.
a resolution.
Just so you guys know, there are other cities in the county also considering the same thing. So we're not on this alone. Malala and Cambria are also looking at something of the same thing as well. So it's not like we're just Baker and us would be doing it. There's other cities. And basically what this is making a statement to our people that we support them and we hear them and their concerns and their cries, and that we're willing to make whatever actions we can, at least be making it in a formal resolution that we don't agree with some of the actions and we support them for their issues. For example, like, let me share again, this is a resolution that the Baker City resolution came out with, and it's be resolved. There's two of them. I'm going to jump to the next screen in a minute here. Be resolved, the city communicate in writing with the governor's office to encourage the full opening of our city and county, recategorization of low population status, or suggesting other means necessary to give our citizens relief from these mandates. How do you, my button's not working anymore. Did it freeze? There it goes. Okay. There's one before too. It says we declare an economic, mental health, and crime crisis due to the current COVID-related state of emergency and related OSHA mandates and guidance as means of loudly, symbolically supporting our citizenry. I can't say the word citizenry. Anyways, yeah. So basically, it says in there, it's symbolically supporting. It's identifying to the people that we're listening, and we're while there's not a whole lot we can do, we can at least make their concerns in a public record. So.
Okay.
Oh,
well, you want to put it back to the main
yeah.
screen and let's get everybody's response. How does everybody fit? Jerry, go ahead.
I think in light of current events, we just lost a school teacher. The cases are high in Estacada. I don't think this is the right timing for this. I just think this is something, maybe we revisit later down the line, but in light of current events, I don't believe this is the right timing for this.
Okay, everybody else? Katie?
Given the last year especially. Probably longer if you really look at it hard enough, but I would say the last year has been divisive enough. People have been pitted against each other for so many different reasons. And honestly, if we're not going to actually be productive in trying to actually resolve the issues that are right now critically facing people in our city, and we can't actually do anything about it, anything else is just going to come off as sanctimonious and going to come off as divisive. And I really don't want to be a part of anything that is going to be any more divisive than I've already seen in the last year. And that's why, if it's not actually going to help anyone, if it's just making a statement, I'm not going to stand behind it.
Okay, Paul, you got anything?
I would agree. I would, if we were to do anything, I'd be fine sending a letter up. But at this point, I agree. I'm not sure that this accomplishes anything other than makes a statement. And I think as individuals, we can make that statement strong enough ourselves with our elected officials.
Okay, Charity, why don't you give me some insight?
I guess given what Joel was saying, I'm not really seeing how this is, to me, it doesn't seem divisive. It's just showing that we are listening to our community. Maybe I'm just not understanding it properly. I don't really have an issue with adopting a resolution saying that we stand behind our community members. Again, Joel was saying that we could word it a different way. We don't have to go down the COVID road. We just need to like open up to our community and say, okay, what are the issues? What's important to you guys? And what do you need our support and our backing for? Excuse me. Sorry, it's getting late. My voice
Yeah,
is like,
that's all right.
so,
That's all right.
So that was my understanding, Joel. Am I correct? Okay.
Yeah.
So
You're spot on. That's
okay,
what I was
so
saying.
we can word this however. This is just something that you're bringing before us to kind of look at as far as like what our community needs might be, where people feel like they're not being heard, and then and adopt some sort of resolution that states that we support them, blah, blah, blah. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. And the reason why
Okay.
this came forward is a question I most commonly hear from people when I talk to them is, where is the city and what are they doing? I've heard that countless times. And so at least when we go through and we can acknowledge the issues that they're having, and we can put them into something that's publicly saying, hey, we're listening. Here's the things we know you have wrong with you. Yes, we can't fix it all, but we're identifying that. At least lets them know, hey, we are listening. We are
Joel,
hearing
I
what
cut
you're
you off
saying.
just I want to get Justin's take on this too.
Yeah,
Justin?
I'm not necessarily ready to make any kind of decision on this. I think I lean towards Paul. I liked what Paul said. I think that there's a lot of people out there that have a lot of different opinions, and if this is to cover everybody, I think there's a lot that needs to be said. But I think that the city has done and shown things that they've done for the citizens through all of this. So I don't think that we haven't done anything. I know that we have done stuff. So I'm not ready to make a decision on this right now.
Okay, that's fair enough. All right. Well, I'm seeing in the room that has a tendency to wait on this, I think, more than anything else. I don't think it's a done deal. I just think that right now, with the pressures we're dealing with and the things that are happening, your consensus around what I'm hearing is that we hold off and maybe just get through this in one piece and understand that people are suffering in different ways, and it's not a good time to put something like this in front of them. Is that what I'm getting? Okay, Joel, does that kind of go what you're saying? I mean, we can bring it back, but I think there's a time and a place for everything.
Yeah, like I said, this movement was based upon the large request of the constituents, and that's why this was brought forward. So, I mean, if the council's consensus is to want to wait, that's fine. I just, like I said, I think we should be saying something when they're asking about it. But like I said, it's the consensus. Whatever.
Is this like the whole town saying something to you?
You're kind of
losing
I have
me
a lot
here.
I have a lot of ears in my ear because of the nonprofit I'm attached to, because of my interactions with other things. I get a lot of people talking to me. I get messages all the time. And so it's people are they're upset because a lot of them don't feel like their representatives are seeing what they're dealing with, whether it's business wise, whether it's issues in their homes. And so a lot of people brought this to me. A group of people brought this to me and said, hey, can we consider this? Can we do something so that we know that our representatives are at least hearing what we're saying? And, you know, we understand that, no, you can't stop what the state government's going to do. We get that. But we want to know that they care, because
Yeah.
it seems like they want to pass over on all these other things, and they list out these things, but they said there's not a lot coming out for what they're hearing about us and what our concerns are. And so they brought this forward to me, and I said I'd bring it up to the council, because I think it's something it's a starting point for the conversation to put something together to say, hey, we do hear your concerns. We are here to represent you. We want to get out your concerns and represent those concerns on a higher level. And
Can you
this
give
was
us
a good start.
examples of some concerns that we're not addressing? Just a short list.
For example, some people are feeling that we're not, no, let me see if I can pull something up here.
It's getting kind of late too on this. I mean, I'm not.
Yeah. And like I said,
need
let's
to-
come back to this. This is not
Yeah.
totally gone and done with. Let's just say we've milled this over. We've heard it. We've got it in our minds. This is something we'll revisit with some more information at a later date, but let's let this go right now. Not to say that it's
Cool.
gone, just to give us time to think about it.
Joel,
Okay.
if you want to send me some of those bullet points, maybe, and I can put together something to send out to the council and.
Oh yeah, I'll put something together for at least what are some of the specifics people are giving me.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'll bring that back in conjunction with this. So
And please encourage them to call City Hall and, you know, if they're businesses, talk to Matt. If they're, you know, they need other things, maybe talk to Melanie, but encourage them to contact us. so
yeah,
we can-
one of the issues was it's hard to get a hold of City Hall sometimes. But like I said, I'll send it out.
Okay.
All right. And then your next one, Joel, is going to be controversial, people. I'm warning you right now. You're all going to have something to say, but let's be civil. Let's just listen to this and get through it. The next one on here is the Second Amendment sanctuary discussion. Joel, take it away.
Yep, I'm pulling it up right now. I have another slide thing here.
And Joel, while you're pulling that up, can you send those to Sadie to include in the packet, anything that you've shown tonight?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
So, and it's basically, this is all the breakdown of what I sent out earlier today. So she has everything I'm showing down a breakdown here. So let's see if I can get this thing to work. Okay, quick description of what the Second Amendment sanctuary is. The one I'm most concerned about, I highlighted under here. And this is from Wikipedia. It's adopted laws or resolutions that oppose or purport to prohibit or impede the enforcement of certain gun control measures. Laws or resolutions contend that various gun laws, such as universal background checks, high capacity magazine bans, assault weapon bans, red flag laws, are a violation of the rights guaranteed within the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment sanctuary resolutions are primarily expressive and symbolic. The resolutions are declarations rather than legally binding measures. Okay. And they have no legal force. So I wanted to make that right up front so we understand what we're talking about here. 25 out of 36 counties in the state of Oregon do already have these in place, including, and this is a little old because it doesn't mention Malala here, but like Canby is one of them. Malala has it. So this is the Clackamas County Second Amendment resolution. The gist of it is they re-identify what the state constitution says, you know, well-regulated militia necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Then it goes into our Oregon Constitution where it says the people shall have the right to bear arms in the defense of themselves, the state, but the military shall be kept in strict subordination to the civil power. And then it goes on to basically identify that the county recognizes the documents that are there. They want to preserve them. I'm rushing through this to you guys. So the Board of Commissioners also recognizes the first and last protectors are the people, basically is what they're saying. The significant majority of lawfully owned firearms will not be used in a crime in any given year. Some facts in here: state and lawmakers continue to propose measures aimed at restricting all firearms and ammunition, including bans, taxation, extensive waiting periods, registration, licensing, and even confiscation. Clackamas County Board of Commissioners do hereby, and this with resolve, is that they strongly affirm their commitment to the rights and liberties enshrined in the Constitution of the United States. in Oregon, and especially in the right to keep and bear arms. They oppose any state or federal law that abridges or to the contrary of the provisions in the constitutions and the state constitutions, basically preserving the rights. They strongly support the right to people to keep and bear arms, stated in the Constitution of the United States and Oregon, as interpreted by the United States Supreme Court and Oregon Supreme Court, and they basically oppose any laws that are unconstitutional. And that's what the county has in there. And it kind of goes on to say kind of somewhat the same thing into Canby's. This is Canby's. They have their own police department, so they mentioned about their own police department not enacting on things, so we don't have that one. And then this is for Malala, and they seem to focus primarily on the background checks, referencing the House Bill 941, because when this put out, this was right around the 941 came out. So, and there's a whole bunch more included with the city sent out of other ones around the city that around the state that cities do specifically identify. So the gist of having this is saying that we stand for the right to bear arms as guaranteed by the Constitution, that we won't openly engage, interact in anything that's unconstitutional, and that it's basically it's outside of our control to do much, because it's just a symbolic thing, but it's just basically making our stance in a position as a city when it comes down to the Second Amendment. So I hope I summed that up quick enough.
You did fine. You did fine. Okay, bring it back up on normal screen so I can see everybody.
Hey.
All right. You've heard this one. I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I'm going to start this off. I am a person who does not own a gun. All right. I do not have one. I have been shooting when I was a kid. It was nothing spectacular. I do believe in the Second Amendment. I do. And I stand by it wholly. I believe that all of us have the right to bear arms. I will never change on this. That's just me. But this is about you as well. So that's where I stand on this. All of you can chime in on that. Katie, go ahead.
I'm a gun owner. I've shot guns. I have no issue with guns for the purpose that they originally served, to protect your family and hunt, and there is a purpose for them. I am a strong supporter of the Second Amendment, but I'm going to go back to certain statements that I just made a couple minutes ago, which is that there are a lot of things that we could be spending our time talking about that actually accomplish an end result that we want to see. And that's what we can spend our energy on. When we are spending our time at 10 or 10:15 at night, talking about something that is not actually going to do anything for anyone, it's just symbolic. This is a waste of time, in my opinion. And that is all I have to say.
Okay. Jerry.
I am also a gun owner and also, believe in the Second Amendment, but I am of the feeling that there's no jeopardy of us ever leaving Clackamas County, and Clackamas County already has this resolution. I don't feel that, we need to spend a lot of time on it. I mean, that's the obvious for me. We're part of Clackamas County. Clackamas County already has a resolution. So I would stand behind their resolution. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
I would agree with what Councilor Dunsmuir and Tenbush both said as well too. I'd looked up information on this as well. Came across a great website, U.S. Law Shield, which defends the Second Amendment, and they address sanctuary movements. And they said the sanctuary laws do nothing to prevent a U.S. attorney in your state from prosecuting you for violation of a federal law. They go on to explain that federal law supersedes any state law. All this is a statement, and I feel like Clackamas County's made that statement already for us.
Okay, Charity.
I will be the first to tell you that I wholeheartedly support the Second Amendment. I'm a very strong supporter of the Constitution and a person's right to bear arms. Maybe I'm like on another planet tonight, but I guess I just don't like, I don't feel like it's a big deal to just make a statement saying that we as a city are supportive of that. I know Clackamas County already has that, has already put that out there, but I know that, you know, they're trying to push bills through that will infringe upon our Second Amendment rights. And that's been pretty recent. And so I think this has been, if you are a gun owner, and it's kind of been swirling around in the back of people's minds this past week. So I don't know. Joel, I think it's fine. Like, I don't have an issue with it. I don't have an issue supporting it. It's just, it's a, you know, it's a statement saying you support Second Amendment, all this, it's fine by me. That's my thoughts.
Okay, great. Thank you, Charity. Justin, one more time around.
I think we all support the Second Amendment here. But we're under Clackamas County. I'm pretty good with that. If that changed, then I would be willing to have this discussion. But I mean, we're Clackamas County. We don't have our own police department like Malala or Canby. So I don't see any other needed reason in there. We're using Clackamas County. I'm good with how it is right now.
Okay, Joel.
I just wanted to close with this, and I guess, guys, there's nothing more powerful, especially in a time when people have been beaten down for over a year, to see a stand of a statement, to give encouragement and to give them something to look at and to stand behind on and understand and encourage them, than something like that they really believe in and stand behind and desire, and to see that the people that lead them are willing to take that extra few minutes and make that statement and take the time to build on that. I know there's a million things out there. We still have a disaster plan and a million other things to go over. I get that. But sometimes people need a little boost when they've been beaten down for so long and so much going on over the last year. Sometimes it's just the little things to see that they have there to give them that little extra support, a little extra boost that they need. So spending a little bit of time to build a statement that shows where we stand as a city, and they can have a pride to stand behind it and say, yes, my city's a Second Amendment city. They made the statement. We made it an actual resolution. I can stand behind that. I can be proud of that. That gives them something to boost when there's been so much negativity and so much hardship over the last year. That's what this is about. It's about giving them something to help build their pride and build them up a little bit. So I just want to say that.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Joe. I don't think anybody's ready to vote on it tonight, so I'm going to let it go at that. You understand the purpose behind it. You understand Joel's passion and the people's passion. I know you all do, and I know you all stand behind it, and you would do it under different circumstances. I know I've held you here a lot tonight, and we've been over a lot of stuff. You're tired, and this is not something you want to be looking at right now anyway. So I recommend we all take time to mull this over, maybe bring this back at a later date. But I appreciate all of you listening and giving your comment. Thank you. All right, we're at the last citizen and community group comment. Do I have any in the queue?
Yep, I've got a couple people. I've got Bill Highlands first.
He stayed up that late, huh?
Yep.
Okay, put him on there.
Okay, he's coming in.
Bill, how are you, sir?
The city is apparently about to consider a new sewer plant, and I think as maybe its greatest investment ever, it needs to be incredibly well considered and open to some public comment as to what should be done.
Okay.
That's it.
Oh, well, thank you, Bill.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
Okay, I'll bring in Scott next.
Okay. Scott? How are you, sir?
Good. How are you?
Good.
I'm just Scott Strickland, for the record. I live on Cedar Creek. I just have to say I'm really really kind of offended and disturbed by what Councilor Litke brought forth for the COVID statement. I think, we have workers in Estacada that are dying from exposure to this disease. And I think it's really, really cowardly to bring forth at a time like this and to push forward on that. And I just want to say, maybe if folks spent more time actually understanding the scope of this epidemic and what people were doing to try and fight it, and the plight of workers that are having to show up every single day to work to combat employers that are hostile to this, instead of just sharing anti-vax propaganda from a Chinese cult's propaganda wing on their Facebook page, that we would maybe have some actual progress. We would maybe be able to get to a point where we could roll back all of these restrictions. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Scott. All right, do we have anybody else in the queue?
No, nobody else.
All right. Now we're at the last part of this, so I will go around the room, starting with Jerry. What have you got for us tonight?
So first thing, like always, I really do want to thank city staff. That you guys are amazing. Always put together a great packet. Always, we always know that you put in an amazing effort throughout the weeks and throughout the days to do this. Secondly, we're all very passionate. We're not all passionate about the same things, but we're all very passionate people. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. We're just, I understand I understand everybody's feelings about, what they're passionate about. Just, we're all here for the people. We're passionate about the people that we represent. And, they know, if you talk to them, they know that that you represent them. If anybody wanted to talk to me, they'd know that I'm here to represent them. If they want to talk to me, they want to tell me what their issues are. I'm here for them. Just, we do listen. We are here. That's all I really have to say. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Jerry. Katie?
I apologize. I haven't eaten dinner. So ultimately, I appreciate every single one of you, city staff, Mr. Mayor, all of the counselors, fellow counselors. I appreciate every person and your passion. I appreciate the citizens who call in, all of the citizens who call in, even if they might not be ones that I necessarily want to listen to. I still appreciate everything you have to say. We need to consider everybody's perspective. And sometimes being in our position, it's not to force our perspective on other people. It's to recognize that there are lots of perspectives and lots of voices. And they might not be voices that you're listening to, because sometimes we end up listening to the same voices over and over and over again, thinking that they represent a lot of voices when maybe it's not a lot. That being said, I appreciate all of you. I want to say thank you to city staff, thank you counselors, thank you citizens, thank you every single person, and thank you, Mom. Happy Mother's Day to everybody. And that is all I have to say.
All right. Thank you, Katie. Joel?
I think I shared my position tonight and everything, and I appreciate everybody, and probably see you in the next council meeting.
Okay, thank you. Paul?
A couple weeks ago, I'd reported out that as part of a panel to talk with the Forest Service and ODOT about opening up, trying to get things open up early. They have invited that panel, Forest Service and ODOT, to go upriver on a tour on Wednesday. And I'll be part of that. And I look forward to reporting that out at our next council meeting, what they've had to say and how progress is going there. And then otherwise, I appreciate the input and the diversity of our group as well, too. Just the diversity of thought and opinions. I think it's great. I appreciate the freedom that we've got to speak out on our own positions as well, too. So just thank you for everyone, and for the staff as well, too, for staying up late and putting together another good meeting for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Charity?
I won't keep everybody. You counselors have already said things already that I agree with and want to ditto and echo. So I just want to thank everyone for showing up tonight, and appreciate all that you do and bring to the table. And again, city staff, amazing. You know, to put together a packet like this is a lot of work. So it's doesn't go without great appreciation. So hope everybody has a great night, and I'll probably see everyone tomorrow evening.
All right, thank you. Justin.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Thank you, staff. Appreciate everybody. I'll keep it short and sweet. Thanks, guys.
And you've all said everything tonight, so I'm just going to leave it at that. I want to thank all of you for being here tonight and taking the time out to serve our great community. So thank you. And this meeting is adjourned.